negotiations. So you are really going to see a lot of good order from these leaders who are here so that we can deliver for this country and deliver justice for our people.
National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of the Kenya Kwanza side, also termed the first meeting as successful.
We have agreed that we will begin the dialogue process once we frame the agenda items, and I think we should be ready with that by Monday. As agreed, we will have the secretariat that will be supported by Parliament. We also have technical committees backing up each of our teams and rapporteurs on either side. Together, as leaders from both sides, have agreed that we don't have the luxury of failing in this process. And as much as I appreciate we have heavy issues before us, we know we will agree. We may disagree on some, but we all engage in good faith and with mutual respect for each other and for Kenyans and in the best interest of the country.
But the teams have also agreed not to table any matter that will be of personal interest.
We shall not negotiate, and this is important for any form of power sharing with the Kenya Kwanza Alliance or put any personal interest ahead of the interests of our people. Fellow Kenyans, we ask for your continued prayers and support so that we may find a lasting solution to the challenges that bedevil our nation.
We have indicated also that we will be engaging on the basis of mutual respect, all in the interests of our nation and not in any private interest, but everything that we shall engage on will be for the benefit of the country and the people of this great country.
And President William Ruto has reiterated that the bipartisan talks between the government and the opposition won't focus on the results of last year's elections, as it is a master in the past.
Na mimi rais amenipatia kazi ya kutosha. Unajua yeye alikuwa amekatazwa kufanya kazi. Sasa yeye amenipatia.
Meanwhile, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua News Part has said that he'll send elders to Mount Kenya community to negotiate with now Kenya leader Martha Karua to support the government.
Sijui ni nini huyo dada wetu, nataka nikumtafuta. Nataka nitafute wazee hapa. Wawili kutoka pale Jukeini, nitafute watu pale Giriambu, nitafute watu pale Biri, nitafute watu hapa Kagongo, nitafute watu pale Gekenye na pale Rwambiti, ni watume kwa huyu mama mzee. Si ndio? Wamuongeleshe, si ndio? Hii mambo ya kuvaa sufuria kwa kichwa inatuaibisha. Si ni kweli? Si ni kweli? Lakini shida mimi huyu mama hata nitamtafuta. Unajua ni rafiki yangu, tunajuana. Nitamuongelesha.
The head of state also maintained that the talks on opposition joining the government will not be entertained whatsoever.
Mimi nimewaambia ya kwamba unajua wamezoea tabia mbaya. Wanalete fujo ati ndio wapate kitu. Walilete fujo kwa Moi wakapatiwa cooperation. Wakakuja wakasumbua mzee wetu Kibaki mpaka wakawapatia nusu mkate. Wamekuja wakazungusha Uhuru mpaka wakaenda na handshake. Mimi nawatangazia mapema mchana. Hii ya hasla hii. Hiyo wasahau na wasahau. Kwa hii serikali hakuna handshake. Hii serikali hakuna nusu mkate.
He had again reiterated that his government will not allow the opposition-led demonstrations due to what he says is a history of destruction of property.
Hawa watu tumewaambia mapema mchana. Kenya will never again entertain currency around violence. Violence can never be part of the currency of the political equation of the Republic of Kenya. Tumekubaliana ya kwamba mambo ya vita, kama ni mashindano tushindane kwa mawazo, tushindane kwa mpango. Na hawa watu tuliwashinda mapema. So walikuwa wanazunguka hapa na kitendawili sijui na nini tukawanyorosha waende nyumbani. Ama namna gani? Na wakitaka siwangojee 2027. Ndio tutawaonyesha kivumbi mara hii. Sijui kama hata watapata hata agent ya kusimamia mambo yao.
I'm Dennis Aseto, good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyang.
Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No. It's about shipping up. My business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the sheep in the bathtub? Or
the sheep man?
One of Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and they've been told to write composition about a sheep. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the sheep or a sheep goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning and welcome to Thursday. We're looking at a little bit of traffic starting. It's raining, the heavens have opened, and that means that the roads are a little bit more slippery than they were yesterday. We're looking at a little bit of traffic starting on Jogo Road and on the Thika Superhighway as well. Not going to be too crazy though, at least not for now. We want to see what the morning opens up to be. Some more traffic coming out of Westlands, a little bit of it also coming off of Outer Ring, and it looks like folks are getting up, trying to run away from the rain. Let's keep an eye on things as we get into Thursday proper. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter as we keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
The Mambo Namnagani. Welcome to Thursday, 10th day of August 2023. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Ndu?
Yes.
Mambo.
Oh, sana.
Hey. Umelalaje? Umelala. Tuanzie hapo.
Let me remember. It feels like so long ago. I slept though. I did.
You did?
I slept.
Very good, very good. Very good. That's important. That's important. That, my friend, is very important. What? Yesterday she had cheza with sleep. I was in another meeting. Let us just say.
You slept during the meeting?
Well, I didn't, but
you were dozing. You were doing that thing.
I was feeling it coming in.
It was coming.
Wow! That was a dangerful one.
Dangerful.
Dangerful.
We're even doing new words on a Thursday morning.
It's not new.
Huh?
It's not
Thursday. It's Thursday.
It's not new.
Dangerful. Okay, it's new to me. I've never heard it.
If you've just heard it, that's you.
Okay, so to me.
Yeah. Ednah, do like that. Halafu there's another song that Ednah you'll play. That song I just heard this morning on Radio Maisha. Yes, mwana wa Daudi. Yes. You know that song, Ednah? You must know that song. Mwana wa Daudi.
Mwana wa what?
Wa Daudi.
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 Daudi is not Kiswahili for David?
Daudi.
I do not know. I cannot help you. No.
Sawa, kama ujue ni sawa.
Nikai huko? Okay.
Just search there. Go to YouTube there and search Mwana wa Daudi.
Spell Daudi.
Mwana wa Daudi.
Daudi.
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying Tauti.
Yes, ni Tauti. Kona fikiri ni nini?
Ding, 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 ding.
Kuna watu wengi. Hey.
Wapi?
Kuna Karo. Kuna.
Do you even know which one it is?
Kuna.
Kuna mwanamfunzi mchawi. Not that
one.
Wa?
Mwana wa Daudi.
I found it.
I don't know whether it's the one.
Neither do I. Was it sung by a woman or man?
Both. Who knows, man? It's both.
Tucheze hiyo. Tuone.
Si kama niyo. Inaka kama niyo. Inaka na jogo.
Sasa nitakusaidia aje.
Siko na jogo. That is the one.
Okay.
Umesikia?
Sawa.
Tauti we. Mwana wa Tauti.
Yeah.
Ni huyo. That's the one. It is by who, that song?
No.
Karo and Henry.
And Henry Mutonyi.
Karo and Henry Mutonyi.
Yeah.
Ndio wameimba hiyo wimbo. Yes, Mwana wa Tauti. That's the one. That is the one. That is the one. Wait, Ednah, have you done like that? Ednah is not doing like that. Because I want to tell people what we'll be discussing today. Anyway, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. At 7 a.m., we will be dealing with something that's in the headlines today, the big salary review and all. Yesterday, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission announced new pay increases for public serve and state officers. Inside that new pay structure for state and other public officers, Lynn Mengich, the chairperson of the SRC, comes in at 7 a.m. to talk about this new pay structure. We'll be discussing it shortly in the papers. Yep, that is coming up. At 8 a.m., we know that there's a big and ambitious plan by the government to increase access to water. Mega dams here and there. How many? 100 mega dams
projects
to be constructed via PPP. Now, what does that mean? Okay. Now, and then how does that water then come to you?
In your house.
In your house.
Or your farm, or your whatever.
Very good. Very good. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of this is Alice Muthoni-Wahome. She is the CS, Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. So, we're talking about water. How about irrigation? She's the one in charge of Galanakula? Lu. And all the other irrigation. Do you know how many other irrigation projects
schemes there are in this country? I can't tell you.
There are many. There are many. We learnt about them in primary school. Ednah, remember? 1, 2. There's one in Baringo. What's it called? There's Mueta Bere. There are many irrigation projects and schemes. What happened to those things, by the way? Do they work? Are they helping us at all? She'll be here. And then sanitation is about toilet. Chore. Okay. How many people have access to proper sanitation facilities in this country?
It's a question.
Yes. So the CS for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Alice Wahome, joins us at 8 a.m. to talk about all the plans that they have. At 9 o'clock, we want to have a conversation with you, and we'll be looking at very many things that are happening. There's these bipartisan talks have begun, and then there's what's happening. Yesterday, people were out on the streets of Eldoret town. And what are they raising issue with? The county government of Wasingishu. Pesa ilichukuliwa with the promise of taking people abroad. And what happened to this? Where is the money?
We heard Oscar Sudi also speak yesterday, and he said, you know what, bana, hao ni watoto wetu. If you know you've done something, tafadhalini, rudisheni pesa za watu, tafadhali. Kama mnataka usaidizi, tunaweza kuwasaidia. Lakini kuchukua pesa za watoto wetu, bana. Tafadhali. Tafadhali.
That's the much help you could offer in that conversation, right? Surely. Kama mlichukua, simrudishe.
Please. Aibu ndogo ndogo.
Good Lord. Good Lord. Anyway, today, we want the public to have this conversation. Okay? Yeah. These leaders have told us enough. How about we have our conversation amongst ourselves? So that's what we'll be having at 9 a.m. 17 minutes after 6. The live stream is up. Are you on YouTube? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? Are you on Instagram? Say hello to Eric and Ndu and Ednah. CT is also awake.
Gallivanting.
Yes, he's somewhere.
Inside.
He's having, just say hello to him. Salamu zitamfikia. Haya.
This is the Situation Room. The only way
cloudy
to start.
and rainy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's partly cloudy at 13 in Nakuru, highs of 25 and lows of 13. And Nyeri is cloudy at 14, going to highs of 19. We'll see lows of 13. 14 and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 11. Let's look into a partly cloudy Mombasa at 22, highs of 28 today and highs of 29 in a partly cloudy Malindi at 25. It's cloudy at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 18. And Kakamega is cloudy at 16, highs of 28 and lows of 15. It's cloudy at 18 in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 17. And Dar es Salaam is mostly clear at 23, with highs of 29. We'll see lows of 21. 5 degrees, mostly clear in Johannesburg, highs of 17. And 30 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Lagos at 25. 22 and clear in Kinshasa, highs of 33 and lows of 21. Into a sunny Beijing Thursday afternoon, it's 27 and sunny, highs of 30 and lows of 25. 15 and partly cloudy in Paris, 16 and cloudy in London. It's clear at 23 in New York, still Wednesday night. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 30 and lows of 20.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Ambassador somebody. Ambassador says good morning. Morris Were. Okay, let me see your name properly so that I don't butcher it. Morris Werengany Ongesa says good morning, tuned in from Capras this morning. Hezron Zay says good morning, tuned in from Kitale. McDonald is also here with us. Esther Fathi. Is that how you say it? Okay. Is here this morning as well and says Karibu. Well, we say Karibu to you. Welcome and, hear all these good things. Many people tuned in this morning. Did CT finish reading 17 books in one day? That's a question. Anyway, good morning. Alex Omogi is tuned in from Doha. Shiro says good morning, all from Kimana. Hey!
Shiro.
She's in that place.
Yeah, yes.
Karibuni Amboseli, she says. The 2000 Joe Alex Brian, says good morning, everybody, with flowers and sunshine. To you too, my man. Alik Bulan says good morning. For sure, akuna nusu mkate hii imeenda. Okay.
Yote. Wamekuja wamechukua.
Ni kama.
Ama wale wengine wamekataa nayo.
Sasa hatujui. Hakuna mkate hata.
Hakuna mkate.
Millie Simi says good morning from Nachu in Nachu. Is that how you say it? Kiambu County. Desmond Ortiz says good morning, Injo and Eric. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you too. Mlembe Bosi Vusher. Okay.
Mlembe Bosi. Vusher.
There is more, but I can't pronounce it.
You continue. Just try.
For not want of butchering the
just try.
Kiluya language.
No, just try.
Let me try. Mlembe Swa Mukolnile Bulai Bas. Team Spice Mlembe Lundi Mno.
Bas.
I don't know what it means.
What she said.
Sounds pretty though.
There's a Mulembe meaning. There are very Mulembes. Mulembe was, Mulembe Bas, Mulembe what again?
Mulembe... Oui, Swa. Sour. Joe Mungai says, hi, Ndu Latiff and CT in absentia, watching from Seaside, Oregon. By the way, what would happen if we harvested every drop of rain and made good use of it? I cannot tell you the fantastic things that will happen if that actually did take place.
If we harvested every drop of rain?
Yes, and made good use of it.
Wow.
There's the subject and the predicate, and made good use of it. My goodness, it would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Brian Otieno says, good morning. Our eloquent presenters should at least one slot for Friday be to celebrate African culture in our traditional regalia. Well, you know, you never know. Mwenda is on night duty. Mwenda, where are you? Which country do you find yourself? If you're on night duty, you must be on the other side of the pond.
Yeah.
Isaac
Could
Gullo
be in
says,
this country.
Well,
Just
that's
finishing.
true. Could just be finishing night duty. Well, tell us, Mwenda, where are you? Mercy Kivanda, son of David Mwana wa Tauti. Oh, Tauti David. Okay.
You get it?
I get it now.
Very good.
Courier Isaac says, good morning. Looking forward to an insightful conversation. Tune in from Maradaima. In the US, okay. Mimi, I'm missing Muka City, lakini kitoko too. Okay, now I know what you're doing, Mwenda. Ruth Karenga says, good morning. It's 10 p.m. in my world. I'm live from Minneapolis. Just had the sunset. I know the summer nights are long. James Sekento tuned in from Kerara Pond. Cliff on Batteries tuned in this morning. Dedan Mwangi is also here. Good morning, Ndu, Eric, and Ednah, Teacher Mbunde. There's so many people online today. We can see you all. Brian, Francis, Paul, King, Dave, and Sam. Karibuni wote.
Titauti was just chilling.
Yes. Oh, she says she's in Germany. Yeah. Lower Bavaria.
So night shift in Bavaria. Okay. Enjoy yourself, my sister. Today's proverb is still from that region of the Songhai, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and all those people. The river is too large, but it still wants to become bigger. The river is too large, but it still wants to become bigger.
Who says it's too large? Who says it's too large?
The observer.
Too large for what? It's banks?
The river is already big, but it still wants more water.
It still has ambitions.
Yes.
Not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily.
Or maybe it is. I mean, just...
Don't grow too big for your britches.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Perhaps?
Insatiable. Never has enough. Just accept this is enough. Nimeshiba sasa. Tosheka. Na ulale. Let's hear what Lynn Mengich and Alice Ohome will think of the proverb. The headlines.
All right, the headlines on the front page of the Standard this morning. With winners and losers in SRC salary review, teachers will get the largest chunk of the salary increment announced yesterday, with county workers also reaping from the raise. We'll look into details of that. Plus, as you said, Lynn Mengich will be here with us today. Rivals promise to put country first as talks begin. Well, okay then.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much. The bipartisan talks at least started at some point yesterday. Kimani Ichung'wah was stuck a little bit, and then he made his way to Bomas later, but then things got off to, good starts, they say. And they've told us that it is you Kenyans that will be at the forefront of every bit of a discussion that they have, and the resolutions that they come up with. Okay?
Yep.
So don't even worry about that.
We will be.
Yeah, so don't even think
what
that
they'll be discussing us. Okay.
Shock for students after universities ignore fees directive. Yeah, you can say whatever you want, but here, school, you see that you pay or you do what? You go home.
Ship out.
Exactly. End of era as Michael Joseph quits Safaricom. And many questions about that already having come up on the front page of The Nation. The big salary review is what we're talking about again today. There's some numbers and there's some percentages we look into as we look into a little bit of that story. Ruto Raila talks off to a cordial start. We did see that. Everybody was having a kumbaya movement at Bomas. We'll see how long that holds up. Economy is stable and we have paid 300 billion shillings in Uhuru era loans, says Ruto.
Hey.
I'm telling you, it's not a small thing. They've paid that money, so just don't be looking at them anyhow. All right. The Ombudsman exposes the rot at immigration. The Ombudsman report paints a troubling picture of passport applicants being overcharged and documents vanishing like poof into the night under mysterious circumstances, raising serious questions about the department's operations. So it's not just that. Remember, we had that conversation a couple of weeks ago. It's not just about the machine that is faulty, there's a faulty part and blah, blah, blah. There are apparently more reasons as to why this whole process has slowed down considerably. And we'll look into the details of that. So headlines o'clock.
Those are the two stories. Why are you ignoring them?
Which other ones? Okay, Sawa. MPs, 15 MPs yet to utter a word in the House like, bim. Hello, I'm the MP for... my name is...
Taifa Leo has called them Wabunge Wabubu.
Even to say good morning, my fellow MPs. No. Or can I please go to the bathroom? No. They have not said anything.
Nothing.
No, please.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been quiet. The question is why? They don't have anything to say. I don't know how, why. Anyway, okay. Kenyan bags 25 million shillings for their innovations. Peter and Jerry and Esther Kimani feted at a global awards ceremony recognizing individuals whose work is inclined towards ending extreme poverty and its systemic causes. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, the Business Daily. Shilling wipes out 13 billion shilling worth of payouts to foreign investors. You understand what that means?
No.
So, companies operating in Kenya, let's say those listed in the stock exchange and others, okay? They do good business in this country. They declare a profit. They do business in shillings. They declare a profit in shillings. Their investors are outside of the country. Their investors now wait for dividends outside of the country.
They want to be paid in not Kenya shillings.
So they will be paid in not Kenya shillings.
Got it.
So you use the Kenya shilling to buy the dollar to send to
the outside.
There you go. So now, therefore, hence,
forthwith,
in that conversion of the huge dividends in Kenya shillings, so that you can send the dividend to your investor
in
dollars, loss. An analysis of dividend repatriation across 13 listed companies shows foreign investors have taken a 13 billion shilling haircut on currency depreciation alone. Investors lost those billions as a result of buying the hard currency from the local market to send to them abroad. A challenging economy has also forced some of the larger companies at the NSE, such as Safaricom and EABL, to cut the actual dividend payouts this year compared to last year, further deepening the year-on-year hit on repatriated payouts.
My God.
So issue upon issue upon issue. The other headline, why I left Safaricom after 23 years. So they did an interview. Julian Zamboko held an interview with Michael Joseph, speaking virtually from London, where he was seeking to explain that his resignation was mainly to free up time to concentrate on Safaricom's Ethiopia subsidiary, where he still holds the position of board chair and an advisor to the Safaricom Ethiopia CEO. So he says he is not good board material himself. There's a new chairman, he says, a new board members, and maybe this is a good time to step down. I am not really good board material. I'm a CEO type of person. I like being in charge. I'm not the kind of person that likes to take direction or wait for guidance. And as a director, that is restraining. This is words coming from the chairman of Kenya Airways. Yes. He's not good board material.
But he is still on the board for Kenya Airways.
Yes.
And he's not leaving that one.
And he's not good board material. He likes being in charge.
So
there's a CEO at Kenya Airways. He says he wants to concentrate on Kenya Airways. He also still sitting on the board of Safaricom Ethiopia. But you see, in the board of Safaricom Ethiopia, he's an advisor to the CEO.
He likes action.
He's an advisor to the CEO. That tells you what? Because he likes doing.
Yeah, he wants to make sure he does.
So the CEO is basically
not doing. Okay, I didn't say that.
He said President William Ruto, the telco's new chairman Adil Khawaja, and CEO Peter Ndegwa asked him to stay on, but just to exit. I was definitely not forced out. That's for sure. It was my own choice, and the new chairman, the CEO, other board members and the government wanted me to stay longer for sure. I notified the president out of courtesy. There's never a right time to leave a company of this nature, especially given my involvement with this company from the very beginning. I could stay on for another 10 years, to be honest. But I think at some point, your value diminishes. I'm not a great board person. I can do a lot more off the boardroom than on it. Forcing me out of Safaricom would take a lot more than this. How do you think I was forced out?
I left.
You guys.
I'm kidding.
Think you can just kick me out like that. People. Do you understand things, really? Tangan Demo, in his weekly article in the Business Daily, is talking about move Africa from AI talk to action. Africa is at risk of widening the inequality gap between it and the rest of the world if it fails to adapt to 4IR demands. There's also another headline in the Business Daily, Inside Life. Kenyans wow the world with bartending skills. It's often billed as a job where you get paid to party. The life of a bartender. On a Saturday night in Barcelona, Spain, 2 Kenyan bartenders pack up their cocktail shakers and turn up to work at the world's best bar, that's Paradiso. The duo, armed with Kenyan spices and ingredients, are ready to juggle, stir, mix, craft delicious drinks with the plan of creating an enjoyable atmosphere at the majestic Mahali Mzuri-esque curved wooden bar that was ranked the 2022 world's best bar.
Why, I wonder?
Kenyans. Because Kenyans are there. I'm sorry. Okay. Monica Riongo, Heroes Bar manager, mixes a drink for a reveler and nothing looks out of place about the 29-year-old except that seriousness on her face. Yeah, those are the Kenyans we're talking about.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah, Monica Riongo. And they also feature Tribe Hotel bar manager Kelvin Thairo.
Nice.
Senior?
Sinivio.
Very nice one. So let's take a look at traffic and then we look at stories in detail. Gotcha. 8:27 to 7, Kenya's biggest conversation. Wherever you are, thank you very much for getting up and tuning in. Let's take a look at traffic.
On Jogger Road this morning, traffic getting out towards Landis is already starting to look quite heavy. Landis is packed, getting towards Kamkunji at the roundabout, and we're seeing some movement on Gong Road this morning. Looks like it's going to be quite some to contend with. The rain, of course, not making anything easier. Let's see how that opens up. We're looking at Muthaiga Square, going out towards Pangani, and then splitting towards Wangari Maathai and Muranga Road. Traffic is already starting to build up there. We're looking at traffic coming out of Waiaki Way. Westlands generally is already a beehive of activity. It does look as though it's going to be a busy Thursday. All right, what else are we looking at? Traffic on Mombasa Road, nothing much to contend with. As you get to the roundabout, though, as you're coming in from Langata Road and then touching on Rilo Dinga Way, coming in from Gong Road, you'll see some of that movement around the City Mortuary roundabout. Let's wait and see as we get into traffic hour what it's going to pan out to be. For now, doesn't look too bad, but spots to watch out for. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Let's talk there as we keep things moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Let's look at the shock for students after universities ignored fees directive. And you wonder why? What? Huh? Yeah, exactly. So, turning the page back to the story. Now, some university heads have defied guidelines issued under the new funding formula. Students and their parents will now have to contend with uncertainty on the matter that appeared settled. Remember yesterday we had a conversation here and they said, yes, this is what's going to charge because, you can apply for a loan, get 82%, 18, 70%, 40, like that. He said the universities are not allowed to review fees for students already admitted. The understanding we had with the president when formulating the new formula, was that fees for each course would remain throughout their course period. Thus, the university should not review while the student is midway through their university. But samples of admission letters reveal that some universities have defied the regulations. Remember, we're going into a period where universities are reopening for the first semester of the next year, right? A Bachelor Education Arts letter from the Kisumu University seen by the Standard indicates that the new students will only receive government funding for 2 academic years. Why? We wonder. The government will categorize you, student, into the various student categories: vulnerable, extremely needy, needy, less needy, able, failure to apply for the support. The university expects you to cater for your full fees. This offer is valid for only 2 academic years. Why would they do that? I do not know. It further indicates that the fees would be reviewed. Please note that the university fees are determined by the University Council and approved by the university's funding board. The council may revise the fee structure at any time it deems necessary. Another admission letter for Bachelor of Education in Special Needs from the Rongo University also cautions that the institution would revise the fees when necessary. This contradicts Monari's word that the government would fund programs for the entire period. So it's nothing like, it's not halfway and then come later. No. And I believe we answered,
what a
he answered
contradiction,
that
though.
question yesterday.
A contradiction.
So yesterday we asked him, he said, so is this for the full time that the students will be in school? He said, yeah, for the 4 years or however long your degree course takes. What these letters are saying here is that this government funding for which you're asking you to apply for is only available for you for 2 academic years. You see?
Yeah, to be reviewed.
No. It says very clearly here, this offer is valid for only 2 academic years.
Yes.
The offer of funding, only 2 academic years.
Yes.
No, it's not. According to what Monari told us yesterday, it is you apply for it, you get that funding that you have gotten for your full course tenure.
No, but remember, even when you was talking about if circumstances change, you can... There's...
If circumstances change, that maybe you were needy and then you become less needy, or you become
it's just like help you
us.
apply, but then they disburse annually, and there's reviews for disbursement. It's not like you're getting money once for the 4 years.
I remember.
What is this letter saying?
This letter is saying that this offer is valid for only
which offer?
Academic years. The offer where you will be categorized and the university failure to apply for the support, the university expects you to cater for your full fees. The offer is valid for only 2 academic years. The offer to pay this money for you, either you're getting the scholarship or you're getting the loan, you only get it for 2 years.
Wait, but the university is not funding you. Is this the acceptance letter? What is valid for 2 years? Sounds to me like it's the admission.
No.
That's valid for 2 years.
No, it's not the admission.
Because the university is not the one determining whether you are getting a loan, whether you are categorized. That's not the university's job.
That's the point of this. That the university is coming in and saying that you then, in terms of how you pay for your fees, we will now structure up and down. But Monari had made it clear before that it is not up to you actually to decide whether this person gets funding or not. You can accept them or not accept them. But in terms of funding from a public university, the fund is taking care of that. So now this information, according to them, should not come from the university. They don't have the mandate.
Are they
to
quoting
alter fees.
the
quote
the letter itself?
Yes.
Okay, read the letter from top to bottom. Dear Ndu.
The Bachelor Education letter from the Kisumu University scene indicates that the new students will only receive government funding for 2 years. In quotes. The government will categorize you, student Eric Latiff, with the various student categories: vulnerable, extremely needy, needy, less vulnerable, less needy, able. Period. Failure to apply for this support, the university expects you to cater for your full fees. This offer is valid for only 2 academic years. It further indicates that the fees could be reviewed. Please note that the university fees are determined by the University Council and approved by the university's funding board. The council may revise the fees structure at any time if it deems necessary.
Okay. So the part I'm stuck at is this offer. Is it the admission offer, or is it the fee structure, or is it the funding offer? Because there are several things that we're talking about here. This letter is basically admitting you to the university. So there's one way of looking at it, that this admission offer is valid for 2 academic years. So you can come in now, or if for whatever circumstance you're not able to come in now, you can still come with this admission letter in the next academic year. We will consider admission. After that, if you come on the 3rd year and you say, you guys had admitted me three years ago, they'll tell you, we have to review, we have to discuss with COOPs and all. That is one interpretation I'm having. Second interpretation I'm having is the fee that we are charging you for the program that we are offering, that fee, it's whatever X amount of money per year, is going to be in place for 2 years. After the 2 years, the University Council reserves the right to revise, to maintain, to revise upwards or downwards after the 2 years.
Now,
You'll have a new fee structure.
Now, let me tell you.
Third interpretation that I'm having is that one, of that your categorization, blah, 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 the amount of how you're categorized and how you are given scholarship and loan and all will be valid for 2 years.
But that's not the case.
So there are three interpretations that I'm seeing. And
so now the last one doesn't exist because Monari said very clearly.
The first two
possible
are directly university related.
We'll
the
have
third
to
one,
check
the university doesn't have.
We'd have to check because it's not usual that an admission is open for 2 years. Very, very rare. Okay? Secondly, Monari's word, again, quoted, government will fund programs for the entire period. This can be 4 or 5 or 6 years, depending on the length of your program.
Yes.
Right? So should you apply, we will fund you for those years.
Yes.
This thing of subject to review after 2 years, then for this...
No, government will fund you for the program. You see, if the fee changes, it doesn't mean that because you entered this program on year one and the fee was 100,000 shillings, it's fixed at 100,000 shillings. What is fixed is a percentage. If you're categorized as vulnerable and you're getting that percentage, what are the percentages for vulnerable? 82%, 18% loan. You receive 82%, 18% of whatever amount the university is charging you for that program. Okay? So the university fund will work with the university council to agree on the fee. If the fee keeps changing, whatever, it doesn't matter. You will keep getting those percentages.
Yes. Now, what they're saying
and and that's what Monari was saying. If we offer you, we say that we categorize you as vulnerable, and we are saying we are going to support you through your university education or your college or your TVET education, we commit to go walk the journey with you until you finish.
Possible. It's possible. But I come back to you and I say, after speaking with Monari on this, he promised to write to the Cabinet Secretary for Education on the matter to clarify these issues with them, being very clear that if fees should rise for whatever, but because you see the thing is, it does affect you. It does affect you. If you're taking a loan, if they increase the fees and you're taking a loan, what does that mean? That you're getting a loan of a greater amount, which means that you have to pay back a greater amount.
Yes.
Now, the mandate to increase fees is clear. It no longer rests with public universities alone. They cannot do that on their own. If anything like that will happen, it will be in conference with the university's fund.
And the letter has said that as much.
Yeah, so
the
now
letter has said as much. The University Council, in consultation with the University Funding Fund, will have this conversation.
Now, it must also be made clear here that this thing of the offer for 2 years also needs to be made clear. Again, it is very rare that university admission remains open-ended for 2 years. They don't have that kind of time. They never do. So it is most likely that this 2 years was saying, we're offering it to you for 2 years only. They don't have that mandate if they were, right?
Yes.
So that's what the story looks like.
Okay. And this one for immigration. So when the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and now the other bit of that ministry is called not coordination, it's called something else. Interior and something. Anyway, a report by the Ombudsman has exposed massive rot at the Immigration Department, including overcharging of passport applicants, issuing documents with fewer pages than the ones applied for. The damning report also revealed cases of documents mysteriously getting lost. Appearing before the Senate National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, the Commission on Administrative Justice Vice Chairperson Washington Sati said investigations revealed maladministration, inefficiency and discourtesy by the immigration officials. He told the committee that applicants would be issued with passports with fewer pages than what they paid for, without their consent or consideration for a refund. When applicants whose documents had disappeared raised complaints, they were met with casual, impolite, inconsiderate dismissal by staff at the department. The commission launched investigations after receiving complaints against the department from 9 Kenyans. So Kithure Kindiki had acknowledged this work by the Ombudsman, and he had said, yes, the Ombudsman has done its investigations. I have also sent people to the Immigration Department undercover Kichini. They've also come and told me, hey, ile ni Sodom. The Baringo Senator William Cheptumo-led committee heard that one complainant was asked to top up her payment from A series to B series, but was still issued with A series without a refund of the excess payment of 1,550 shillings. She'd been advised by an immigration officer to upgrade from A to B because of the alleged unavailability of the A series applied for, but she was still issued with the A series 34 pages. In another case, an applicant was forced to reapply for her passport as a lost passport after immigration officers allegedly misplaced her application for a renewal, only for her to be issued with the originally applied for renewed passport, but with fewer pages than what she had paid for. There was no refund of either her first excess payment of 1,500 or the second payment for a lost passport, 12,050 bob. The rot that is at the immigration, and it's not new. It's been there. It keeps rearing its ugly head. And now when you have the challenge of a machine that's broken down, it creates a very good breeding ground for all these other things. Because now there's a lot of pressure on the system because the system is not delivering as it should, and many more people are still applying. So you go in there and you're told, sasa we nikusaidia. Sasa fanya hivi. I think apply for this one. Ama nione kando for this one. And it just goes south.
But seriously speaking,
it's just...
you know, the thing is, having a passport as a citizen of a country is not a privilege. It's not a privilege. It's how else do you identify yourself as Kenyan if you're going to cross the borders beyond your ID? It's not a privilege. It's not, oh, let me do you a favor. Blah, blah. No. The fee that you pay is to facilitate the process. It's not that you're paying something so that somebody does something for you, as somebody does something nice for you. It isn't. And getting over this thing like, oh, well, you know, the whole process of going to immigration is painful. I mean, come on. No. There's no reason why even it should take you a week to get a passport. You're a Kenyan. You have an ID. You can claim, you can prove that you are with the documents that you needed. Shouldn't take you a week. Finish the thing, we move. But all, like you said, breeding ground for utter corruption is right here. People applied for their passport last year and have not gotten them till now. Are you kidding me?
Imagine.
For what machine is broken? Buy another machine. The part doesn't exist. Buy another machine.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? So it's like saying we're running a restaurant, and we're going to serve food, but the cooker is broken. So what are you doing there then? The very essence of what takes you there, you don't have. So why are you there? What are you doing? How can Kenyans be lining up for months to get passport and you can't give it to them? Sorry, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't.
Aye.
And people have even forgotten that they applied for passports.
Aye.
And you know this is not just fresh applications, renewals, lost passport.
Can you imagine all those things? It's really, really, really it's not a good thing. And yeah, Kithure Kindiki has said these things, or he has said, you know what, in the next 90 days or in the next 60 days, just forget it, Kithure. These things are not working. Okay?
Not working.
Yes. Kama ni pesa unataka, you have money, buy the thing.
Let's move.
Yes. It's just touch on something else.
The president saying that the economy is stable. Do you feel it's stable?
Yes.
You do? Very good. President William Ruto has assured Kenyans that his administration has succeeded in stabilizing the economy 1 year after the election. Dr. Ruto said the government has managed to clear a 300 billion shilling debt that had accrued during former President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration and stopped additional borrowing. So Kenya is not borrowing anymore.
We have stopped borrowing. Of course we are borrowing.
No, he said we have stopped borrowing. What's wrong? President has said, why are you doubting?
Please.
Huh? Just stop. He said, we now have a firm foundation for the economy. We are going to be prudent and careful in the management of our resources.
Right.
Dr. Ruto told leaders and residents at the Sagana State Lodge in Nyeri Tuesday without offering details on the loans cleared or their tenure. So you don't need to know that. Just know I'm telling you.
Well, we know the loans that were cleared. I mean, just the other day there was no salary because we were paying a loan.
So now there's salary, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, loans are being paid, that's for sure.
Our first assignment when we took over power was to clear the 300 billion shilling loans to our new budget. We have ensured that we do not have any debts. Okay? One cannot improve the economy by taking loans unnecessarily. We should pay taxes so as to realize self-sustainability. We are on the right trajectory and we are going to succeed as a nation. He revealed that his administration is negotiating a preferential trade agreement with the United States and the United Arab Emirates to ensure a ready market for locally manufactured goods. He said, our aim is to boost manufacturing as a percentage of the gross domestic product from 7% to 15% over the next 5 years. By 2030, we want to reach 20% of the GDP. We want it to reach 20% of the GDP. Okay. We also want to increase our exports as a percentage of the GDP from 10% to 30%. The head of state reaffirmed the government's commitment to eradicating cartels in the agricultural sector and ensuring farmers receive adequate returns on their products. We did see him going about talking to milk vendors and, dairy farmers just the other day. He says we must sort out the agricultural sector and we want to tell you that it will not be business as usual. He stressed on the need to focus on value addition of tea and carry out more reforms in the sector. Currently, we are doing only 5% value addition of all the tea that we produce in 5 years. We want to target to do 50% value addition of all our tea here in Kenya so that we improve earnings for our farmers. He says we're going to review the Tea Act so that we sort out the whole ecosystem. The tea sector earns 120 billion shillings annually. We want to improve it to 150 billion. Now, he warned Azimio Umoja against making a fresh round of protests because you see now we have paid loan, the economy is stable, we have grand plans for the future. Now you want to take us back. Just please don't. He says we've managed to defeat the deep state and the system. They cannot defeat us now that they are in the opposition. Issues of election ended when?
August 9th.
Thank you very much.
Where? Okay. So, remember the woman who was found dead?
Yes.
And it's thought that she died how many months ago? 9 months ago. And nobody knew about it. Now, there's a granddaughter who had gone to the house and took a video. The granddaughter who first accessed the house in which her grandmother was found dead days later has been summoned by homicide detectives on the day a video she took went viral. Her name is Karo Njeri Kehara, and she'll appear alongside 2 other people believed to have been the last persons to interact with Leah Njeri Gashanja. Leah was a retired teacher and a businesswoman. She was found dead in her home in Landless area of Thika, months after she stopped communicating with the outside world. Njeri had been called on June 13th and informed that Nyumba Kumi officials wanted to break into her grandmother's house. 2 days later, she climbed over the fence, watched over by village security, and found the house vandalized. She reported to Makongeni police, who went to the house. 5 days later, while clearing the compound, she stumbled on the skeleton of her grandmother under a mango tree.
She stumbled on the skeleton. She herself found it.
Yeah, under a mango tree. The video she took on the day that she first broke into the house went viral yesterday. It showed the state of the house and was reportedly made to apprise her uncle, Leah's pilot son, on the state of affairs. Uncle, this is Shosho's bedroom. You can see how messy it is. All sockets have been plucked out. The certificates are all over. I don't know if there are thieves in the house who've done all this. There are jembes over the floor, she says in the video. She continues, this is the kitchen. There's no cooker, the gas cooker. The sitting room, the TV has been broken into pieces. I think this is foul play because I don't think Shosho can do this. All the family photos are scattered on the floor. Just look at the lights. They're all broken. She continues to narrate on that video. This video captures an attempt to access the ceiling. A stool was placed on top of a chair and the ceiling covering opened. The refrigerator was smashed and some electronics like the microwave were missing. The police summons came as more details emerged of Leah's reclusive life. Relatives and neighbors spoke of a woman who kept to herself and avoided company. She is a mother of 4 sons, 2 of them deceased. Leah's life took a turn for the worse in early 2000 when her husband Isaac Gedhuku Gashanja dumped her for a new wife. She was kicked out of her matrimonial home in Bendo Estate. Around 2007, she moved to this area called Landless in Thika, where Isaac and one of her sons helped build the house that she died in. Her life took a turn for the worse in retirement, leading to the uncertainty surrounding her death. One of the sons, David Kehara, died in 2015. The husband died in 2017. The other son, John, died in 2019. Also in this home, there were skeletons of her dog. The chicken pen was littered with bone remnants of the chickens. She'd been last seen in July last year, and her remaining sons, one of them a neighbor, were not aware that she lay dead. The other son, who was the pilot, had been sending her money every month without a clue.
Wait, hold on.
Police suspect she may have died sometime last year. Hold on. The son who lives nearby? Yes.
Her son?
She has 2 sons.
Yeah.
One is a pilot.
Yeah.
All right. He's been sending her money.
Mm-hmm.
The other one lives nearby in Thika.
For 9 months, he had
not come to see
his mother.
Yeah.
It's a bit worrisome, no?
Yeah. This Carol, the granddaughter, is the daughter of one of the other sons.
Yeah.
So the pilot sends Carol and tells Carol, hey, I've not heard from Shosho. Can you go and check on Shosho? Then Carol is called told by Jumakumi, whether we want to break into this home because we have not
seen.
So she jumps over the fence. She does all these things. Then 3 days later is when she discovers the grandmother's body lying under a mango tree. There's another photo that's been doing the rounds of a skeleton on a bed. So that's the wrong photo. Right? This is a very, very, very... The Nation says that the person investigating this, one of the lead investigators, the detectives in this case, is saying, what we are dealing with here, it's highly likely that whoever killed her by poisoning or whatever means was well known to her and knew her very well, because that place is not frequented by people. So it was not easy for the body to be discovered soon. So one of the cops is saying they're suspecting some serious foul play in this particular thing.
I think so too. It's very strange.
It's a very, very, very... It's very strange.
Very disturbing as well.
Yeah. Very.
Do I have time to tell you about people who are quiet?
10 seconds.
10.
Go on.
MPs, 15 of them, quiet in Parliament, not doing anything, not talking anything, not representing their people, not oversighting anybody, not legislating over anything. They've just gone to Parliament to keep quiet.
This is a report by who?
It's a report by the who? Wait. You know, I have to even... That means turning a page. And
It's by
10 seconds are over.
Mzalendo. Is it Mzalendo? Yeah.
Mzalendo, yes.
It's a scorecard by Mzalendo Trust.
Yes.
Which is looking at those MPs. Now, do those MPs not participate at all, even in committees?
Utter a word.
Even in committees?
Even in committees. I don't know if this report then took into consideration the committee
sittings. But they speak in all these other places. Oscar Sudi is loud. Ronald Karauri.
Nodding.
He's loud. He's been here twice. Elizabeth Kailemia. Modoni Marubu. Samuel Arama of Nakuru. He's loud. Anyway, we'll look at this story maybe at some point.
Sure.
It's important to actually look at it and see.
I think so. Very important. Who's representing you?
And bring in the Mzalendo Trust people to come and break down this story. What is it that they look at? They look at contributions. They look at Hansard records. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The news at the top of the hour on Vibes Radio.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua is in Mozambique in preparation for his boss, President William Ruto's visit to the country. CS Mutua in a statement said he was received by his Mozambique counterpart Veronica Macamo in Maputo during the Joint Permanent Commission for Cooperation, where they signed 8 instruments of cooperation in the areas of transport, blue economy, energy, agriculture, defense, mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, transfer of sentenced persons, as well as public service training. The CS at the same time urged the aforementioned ministries to act together to ensure the agreed areas are implemented within the shortest time possible. Now, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission has announced a 7% to 10% increase in civil servant salaries. The Commission's boss, Lynn Mengage, stated that the salary increases will be backdated to 1st of July.
State corporations, most of them will be frozen because they are at an average of 89th percentile. But remember, what we have given you is an average. It doesn't mean they are all at 89th. Indeed, there are state corporations that are below 50th. So the amount that you saw there that we shared earlier means that for state corporations that are really way below, then there will also be a review on a case-by-case basis. Can we specify at this point which ones we can share later if we need to, but actually that's the message, that for those that are way below, there will be a review.
She further said that the commuter allowances won't be reviewed.
Commuter allowance is this being reviewed? No. The reason is a question about affordability. Yes, we do acknowledge that cost of living will impact all elements of remuneration, including commuter. However, we've been taken through the economic realities by the CS. So going by the realities on the ground, we cannot afford to make that review.
The Kenya Council leaders from Mount Kenya now claim that the current government has taken strides towards achieving development projects and strengthening the country's economy. Led by Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro and Kirinyaga Governor Guru, they've said that in 1 year the president has managed to distribute affordable fertilizer and launch the Hustler Fund.
As we celebrate 1 year, we celebrate the Hustlers Fund. Yenye wa Kenya wanaenda wanakopa pesa. As we celebrate 1 year, we are here to celebrate that Your Excellency, you have doubled the allocation for higher education loans board up to 30 billion. As we are celebrating 1 year, we are celebrating the reduction of the prices of fertilizer.
Mheshimiwa Rais, tumesikia kazi ambayo umetuletea na miradi ambazo umetuletea Kirinyaga, na watu wa Geshogo na watu wa Kirinyaga wanashukuru sana.
Jubilee nominated MPs Abina Shege and Iyalas Kanini Kega have promised to continue working with the government.
Na kwa sababu mimi sasa ndio party leader wa Jubilee, mimi nataka kumuomba na yeye akuwe patron na situache. Si tulikuwa na yeye pamoja?
Wacha niseme ukweli. Kwa sababu tuliambiwa na Rigeji tuwe tunasema ukweli. Mimi tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8 mwaka uliopita sikumpatia mdozi kura. Mimi nilikuwa nimesukumana na mzee kwa mlima tukiwa na madha, lakini ile kuanguka tulianguka my friend. Na sasa mimi nataka tu niambie madha, huko abako huko, akikaa huko tutawafanyia hiyo kitu. Sasa mimi nikiwa pande hii ya boss.
The leaders were speaking in Nyeri County during the president's last day's visit in the region. And the Morticians and Allied Professional Association of Kenya has condemned Inspector General of Police Japheth Koome over his recent remarks that politicians were hiring dead bodies from mortuaries and portraying them as victims of police brutality during the anti-government protests. In a statement, the Morticians faulted the IG over his claims, labeling them unfair to their professionalism as they reiterated their commitment to adhering to moral ethics and the rule of law. The association therefore demanded IG Koome to substantiate his sentiments by ensuring anyone culpable faces the law, failure to which he should withdraw his remarks, which they say taint their image and profession. Meanwhile, civil society group Muhuri wants IG Koome to resign from his position due to his remarks.
Hakika tumegadhabika sana na statement ya IG Koome. Kwanza tulisema Koome hafai kuwa mkubwa wa polisi kwa sababu matamshi yake ni ya uzushi. Amekuwa mwanasiasa, siashike watu, ni mrongo. Polisi wameua watu, tuko na ushahidi, na maneno yake ni reckless. Hatutaki kubaliana na masuala kama hayo. Tuataka ikiwezekana a resign na aingie siasa. Hatutaki masuala ya siasa ya uzi sindano, kushona na kufumua. Mtu yoyote ambaye ameua afaa afikishwe kizimbani.
They said that they have evidence of police using excessive force to quell the anti-government protest, which cannot be rubbished by the police boss. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
It's busy on Jogger Road this morning, in and outbound traffic, getting up towards Landys and then going in the other direction, then heading out some point towards Outer Ring. The heavens open this morning, and so we see that affect traffic, and that's why we see it start so early today. We're also looking at traffic on the Thika Superhighway coming then in towards the CBD, and it's also heavy then coming on Kiambu Road. Coming out of Westlands, James Gishero also with activity already. So it looks like it will be a busy Thursday. Gong Road is also starting to pack up. We're looking at movement on Gitanga Road. This is all coming off of Naivasha Road and into that whole Lavington area. All right, North Airport Road, we know that's already packing up. It's very heavy and it's moving very slowly out towards Outer Ring at the junction. And then the Eastern Bypass inbound is already clogged. It's bumper to bumper all the way through, touching on Mombasa Road. All right, something to keep an eye on as we go through the morning. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter as we try to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It is 7 minutes after 7.
This is the situation.
How are you doing? Welcome to Thursday. If you're just waking up and joining us, it's the 10th day of August 2023. Soon will be the 10th day of December, and then soon will be
Happy New Year.
31st, just like that. And we'll be moving on to the 2024. Welcome to the Situation Room. If you're just joining us on KTN Home, on Spice FM, on YouTube and Facebook, where we live stream the show every weekday morning, it's Eric Latiff and Ndu Okoh this week. C.T. Muga is away. He has taken some time off to recharge. No, he's not recharging. He decided recharging is not good enough.
Yeah.
He's purchasing new batteries. Coming back next week as a new person. So in his absence, we continue. We move. Regardless, he's enjoying TV, isn't he?
He is. Yes.
Like some shows, Alvin and
the Chipmunks. I'm sure he's bound to enjoy things like that. And DSTV saying you can enjoy this as well. Everyone's favorite chipmunks, Alvin, Simone, and Theodore, are back with a fantastic new season of the classic animated series Alvin and the Chipmunks. It's the Chipmunk brothers, and they are famous rock stars. They tour around the world with their friends, the Chipettes. The new season started already, and you can catch it on Nickelodeon, DSTV channel 305. Open your kids to this wonder-filled world on DSTV to get this and more in kids' world-class content from over 15 dedicated channels. You can download the My DSTV app or dial *423# and get a DSTV decoder with 1 month of family for 2,999 shillings.
8 months into this new year of 2023, if your new year resolution was to be more active, exercise and all, I'll be jogging more often, I'll be running every so often, you still have time. Actually, you can work with the 29th of October as, one of the day that you launch your new year resolution by participating at the Nairobi Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. If you wanted to run, you still have time. Go to nairobimarathon.com today, register for the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, and you'll only pay 2,000 shillings. And then you now start doing what? Waking up in the morning or whatever time in the day or night, walk, run, prepare yourself. Register for the 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer, 21 kilometers, or 42 kilometer marathon. And then on the 29th, you'll actualize your New Year resolution. On that New Year's Day of the 29th of October, you will be reborn. nairobimarathon.com 2,000 shillings is what you need. The Constitution establishes several commissions. One of them is the one established by Article 230 of the Constitution. There is established the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has been given several powers. The powers and functions of the SRC shall be to set and regularly review the remuneration and benefits of all state officers, advise the national and county governments on the remuneration and benefits of other public officers. In performing its functions, the Commission shall take the following principles into account. 1, the need to ensure that the total public compensation bill is fiscally sustainable. 2, the need to ensure that the public services are able to attract and retain the skills required to execute their functions, the need to recognize productivity and performance, and transparency and fairness. Powerful commission. Yes? Yes. The chairperson of that commission, serving this time, is Lynn Mengich. She's our guest in the Situation Room. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room. That's the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation. How does it feel?
Good.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
not as hot as your own seat, right? Yours is hotter, especially with what you've been doing lately. But karibu sana.
Asante.
If City were here, he'd have given you the day's proverb. He always has a proverb. Every week, new proverbs from one country in Africa. This week, he gave me that job, and I am not doing it so well, but I'll do it anyway. The proverbs this week are from a region in West Africa. This region is occupied by people who are called the Songhai people. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, you know those countries. Now, the proverb for today, the river is too large, but it still wants to become bigger. The river is too large, but it still wants to become bigger. What's your interpretation of this?
Well, in the context of our mandate as a commission, then, you'd be saying we've got a wage bill. It is currently at about 43%, thereabout, of the revenue. But we still want it to be bigger than that. Our target is actually 35%, meaning that we have not reached the target.
Yep.
But nonetheless, we have to review pay. So I would see it in that context.
Our wage bill is large, but it still wants
to be bigger.
bigger.
For good reasons.
I wonder what those good reasons
Good reasons.
What would the good reasons be? I mean, when we say that it should be 30%. 35%.
Yeah.
Who determines this?
It's in the
Who sets this?
Public Finance Management Act. So it is it's a legislation.
It's a legal requirement.
Yes, and it's also
that our
in the
public
the
wage bill should not go beyond 35%
of revenue.
of our revenue.
Yes.
Which revenue?
It's ordinary revenue.
Which ordinary revenue for which year? Are we looking at this year's wage bill should not exceed last year's ordinary revenue? Or is it the last audited accounts?
Actually, the Act doesn't specify, but as a commission, we take current because wages is current.
Yep.
So since you're spending on current, not in the past, then we use the current.
Okay.
Yes.
So our
But we
current-
also project, for the next financial year. Yeah.
So when you say we are at 43%, you're
Yeah.
basing it on the 2.2 trillion shillings or thereabouts that
Yes.
KRA declared as ordinary revenue.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay. Indu.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes,
but let's
quite,
go
quite a
slowly.
number. All right. So, I mean, even as we get into the review and the results of that were announced yesterday, let's look at some of these numbers that you talk about, saying that of revenue, essentially money that is collected by the nation, the target is to not spend more than 35% of that total amount on wages. And this is recurrent, as you say, recurrent every month, wages that we are paying to states and state officers and civil servants, right? In the event that it shoots beyond 35%, which is the case, what pressure or what challenge does that now place on your officers as the commission?
It starts with where did we start from? Because that's important. You will see that from 2017 it was around 51%. So what has been happening is that the Commission has been managing it down, and we are now seeing a trajectory, as I said, about 43, and it's projected to 40%. So we have to take into account the context. Where did we come from before that legislation was put in place, before SRC was set up? So it's actually coming down, and that's what the Commission will continue to do. However, it doesn't mean that we don't have challenges and some realities. And so one of the realities I would like to share is the fact that we are a developing country with a population growth rate that is pretty high. We've got a large population below 18. What does that mean? It means that we must continue employing in the education sector. We are yet to attain the ratio of student to teacher as required internationally. So it means we will continue to recruit teachers so that we can achieve the required ratios and deliver quality education. As a country, we look at the ratio of healthcare workers to population. We are below the WHO standards. So again, we must continue to recruit. Another important sector is security sector. Again, in security, we are still below the required standards of security to population. So what it then means is, much as we have the 35% regulation, we also have to look at the context of our country today and acknowledge that the services must reach the population. We are not there yet. So, and that is what we have to balance is, yes, we've got to manage the wage bill, but the reality is we've got to deliver services. And it is therefore something that we can say is justifiable, that we must reach the citizens with the services. Not just to say we must achieve the 35, it's a question of a balance.
It's a balance between those. So there is the number of people offering the service, and there's the amount of money paid to each individual offering the service. Which of those two is a bigger mandate for you? Like you're saying, you're looking at balancing and the need. The reality on the ground is that we need more people to deliver services. Does that mean that we need to pay more to those more people that we are paying, that are delivering services?
Not necessarily, because when we look at what are the drivers for the wage bill, because I think that's the first thing is to ask is what is driving the wage bill. So one is numbers, right?
Yeah.
So if we were to achieve the 35%, what are the things we must look at to get there? The first one of those is, which is not an SRC mandate, is revenue. As revenue goes up, you will definitely see that the ratio will come down. So one of the big conversations, and you will see yesterday in our discussion, we had the CS National Treasury, because there is a very important factor that the Treasury plays in terms of revenue. So that's one big thing that we must watch is, it's not about the absolute amount of wage bill that we should be worried about. It is the ratio to revenue, which means that if we grow the revenue, actually we would not have a big problem. Then the balance would come. We would then be able to recruit more in the essential services and still be able to attain that ratio. Now, so that's one. The other lever is what we do as a commission on a day-to-day to manage the wage bill. And it's got two elements. One is that we've got an obligation to continue reviewing pay for good reasons, and I can share those reasons. But we also have another obligation to make sure that the wage bill is being spent in the right way, so that we don't have public resources being wasted. So so we look at both. We look at both in terms of, we still must attract and retain skills, so we must therefore increase pay, but at the same time we interrogate how it's being spent, and that's a very important factor for us. The third one that is important in this conversation is about productivity. And it's about simply baking a bigger cake, then we can share. If we are more productive as a nation, then we would be able to generate enough for all of us to share. We are not doing very well as a country on that one, right? In 2021, ILO statistics on productivity ranked Kenya 155 out of 181 globally, right? In Africa, 22 out of 46. So that tells us there is something also to do with our own productivity as a country.
Yeah.
If we're more productive, we get a bigger cake, then we get to the 35% very easily.
Is this productivity that we're talking about productivity for internal consumption, or are we talking about productivity for then external consumption, whereby there's a surplus that has been then realized? Or what are we talking about? Or creating a balance between the two?
First of all, that productivity and the numbers I shared is not about just public service. It's the entire country. So it's the labor productivity for Kenya as a whole. If your labor productivity is low, it actually means, as an example, that even if you look at manufacturing, right, it means you're not competitive because your cost of production is lower than it should be.
Yes.
Right? And you can pick other sectors, even if you're talking about agriculture. It means even our productivity there is lower, which means that our cost of goods is higher than it would be. So it impacts our competitiveness as a nation. If you look at the public service, it speaks to how efficiently we utilize the resources therein, right?
Yeah.
It means that we can do more with less.
Yes.
As a public service. So if we were more productive, then we would actually be able to deliver more services for less costs. So that's what that productivity would do. It would enable us, for one, that the whole country is more productive, which means that there is more revenue, right? Because revenue comes from production in the private sector.
Yes.
So if the private sector is more productive, then obviously we generate more revenue.
Yeah.
But it also means better service delivery to the citizens from the public service.
Right.
Because then we are able to focus on the outcomes, not the processes. Because productivity talks about what are the outcomes
of what. So we're putting the pieces together, and all of this then forms then the decisions in the review that you've made that has come out. One of the things you mentioned was wastage. And then we've seen, this is this big review that we've seen, but we've seen the mentioning of certain things over time. There's been scrapping of allowances. There's been reduction of several things. When we're talking about out-of-city travel, we've seen that has also been reviewed downwards. Has all of this come from what you deem as a commission as wastage, and what does wastage look like? Again, as we're looking at the pieces to put together to what came out yesterday.
Yes, when it talks about, and Eric mentioned earlier at the beginning that basic salary is probably not the problem because those ones you can control. Wastage comes from discretionary expenditure. In the sense that I don't necessarily have to spend. For example, I'll give you an example of the allowances that we said yesterday should cease to apply. So an institution decides to form committees internally to do the work that you are appointed to do and pay an allowance. So we're saying that is double compensation. Or you want to develop a policy and you go for a retreat. But remember, you're doing the job you are appointed to do policy work, because someone must be appointed to do policy. But what do? You pay retreat allowance. So again, you can see that is double compensation. Or you form task forces within the institution. Now, we are then saying those task forces are discharging the mandate of that institution. So surely it must have been allocated to someone. So why are you then paying a task force on top of your salary? Now come to the per diem. That is the domestic, the travel allowance. The issue there today is we have allowances in different clusters, right? So if you travel to to Mombasa, the cities, you get more. If you travel to other towns, you get less. What does that mean is that everybody travels to the large cities. So you find everyone, whether you're from western part of the world or Rift Valley, you're all going to Mombasa, right? Those in Mombasa are going to Nairobi or elsewhere. So what that means is that you're actually spending much more than the allowance, the DSA. What we are worried about there is the cost of travel and time that you're spending, which we don't cost, right? So this review says, let it be uniform across the country. That then means that you can actually have your meetings at the nearest location. You may not save on the DSA, but you save on the other hidden costs that come with traveling to the cities to get the higher allowance.
So now you've normalized and regularized. There's nothing like city and town and village.
No. Kenya
as long
is
as
Kenya.
you're out of office.
We have said within a radius of 50 kilometers.
You can only go within a radius. What if you go beyond the 50 kilometers?
You can only claim once you go beyond the 50, because within 50, it is your normal duty station. Yes, please.
You're within office.
Yeah, you're within office.
Let's do a bit of some definitions, because there's always these two terms, public and state. Who are public officers and who are state officers?
Public officers is everyone who works for the public service. It includes state officers.
Okay.
But when we then say state officers, they are defined in the Constitution. It actually says who is a state officer. And we define starting from the president. So basically, the executive, presidency, CSS, PSS, constitutional commissions, the judiciary, that's the judges, magistrates. In the legislature, it will be all the senators, the MPs, the county assemblies. So that's state officers.
Okay.
Then the Constitution, then the others calls other. That's why it says state and other
officers.
Public officers. So other then defines everyone else, from civil service, from disciplinary forces, the teachers. It will also include the state-owned enterprises, so universities. So the rest now becomes other public officers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then there are various employers in this public space. There's the Public Service Commission, the Parliamentary Service Commission, the Judicial Service Commission, the National Police Service Commission. Then you have the military, also the defense forces. They're an employer. You go to the counties, you have the County Public Service Board, the County Assembly Public Service Board. All of these operate sort of different, or are they all bound by the SRC's recommendations?
All these are employers, as you rightly put it. The employer has a responsibility that goes beyond remuneration. They have, for example, roles that to do with general terms and conditions of service. Those ones for Parliament, for example, they look at facilitation of members of Parliament to do their work. But when it comes to remuneration, then the Constitution is very clear. For state officers, the Commission sets.
Okay.
So we set.
You set the salary for president, cabinet, MPs, judges, magistrates, governors, MCAs.
Yes.
Okay.
So we set.
Okay.
The Constitution is very clear. It calls it setting. So we set. For the others, it says to advise. Now, what does that advise means? And this has been interpreted in many court cases that it is not advice that you give in vain. Right? It is expected that you implement. Today, I can actually say that all institutions implement the advice. Right?
To the letter?
Where they do not agree with us, they go to court. So we do have cases that end up in court because for one reason or the other, they then do not agree with what we have advised. Or even some cases, even when we have set, they have a recourse to do that.
You as a commission are established by the Constitution. the drafters of this constitution, of course, had some wisdom in actually making this a constitutional commission, so that it gives you independence of how you think, how you operate, and how you come up with your recommendations and setting of salaries. However, as we have seen, Vitu kwa Ground comes with some sort of other additions. Political pressure. Are you insulated from political pressure as a commission?
Absolutely, we are independent. We make independent decisions. But when we talk about being independent as constitutional commissions, that does not mean that we are not interdependent. There is an element of interdependence and collaboration. But at the end of the day, the decision remains with the commission. You make that decision independently. But you work in collaboration. What does that mean for the commission? You will see that before we set for state officers, there was public participation, which is also mandated in the constitution. For the other public officers, we engaged all the employing entities. That process of engagement, stakeholder participation does not remove your independence. We will get the feedback, but the final decision rests with the commission. So that is where the independence comes from.
Okay. So when you see the president commenting publicly on what you had initially talked about, setting his salary and saying, Pana, I cannot take that salary, that was him responding, public participation.
Yes,
not
please.
the president telling you what to do.
No. He was, because remember, we had just we had just invited we had invited stakeholders to give their memorandum, as it were, right? He is a very important stakeholder. He is a very, very important stakeholder. And therefore, he is within his right to make the comments that he did.
Okay, so you took it as a comment?
We did it as feedback of very important stakeholder, which we then take it like all other stakeholders, and we assess all the feedback we get against the 5 principles of the Constitution, and then we arrive at a decision. But yes, we take all the feedback.
Okay, let's take a break. The conversation continues shortly. Lynn Mengich is the chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. The SRC has recommended and actually set new pay structure that will be in effect for the next 2 years. Am I right?
Yes, please.
For the next 2 years. And that's what we're discussing today. The work that the SRC has done to get to this point and what this point means to the country. At 28 minutes to 8, we'll be back shortly on all the platforms. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions at 13 in Nairobi, highs of 20 and lows of 11. We'll see lows of 13 in Nakuru. It's sunny at 15 and going to highs of 26. Looking into Nyeri, it's sunny at 13, highs of 19, and 23 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 15. 23 and cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 28 and lows of 22, while lows of 24 will be realized in Malindi, where it's cloudy at 25. It's 20 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 29, and 28 will be the high in Kakamega at 18 currently. In Kampala, 18 and sunny, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 29 in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 23. Johannesburg is cloudy at 5, highs of 17, and it's mostly cloudy at 25 in Lagos, going to highs of 30. 33 will be the high in a clear Kinshasa at 21.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It won't start. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in
Ben low, nin inte, nin there, you markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And you must blame it on Adam, not because Adam messed up and he was told, now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, it's heavy in most parts of the city this morning. Jogo Road, heavy going towards Landis and then into the CBD. The Thika Superhighway, heavy with traffic. It's inbound. And we're looking at Kiambu Road, very many lanes trying to approach Muthaiga Square and then out towards the city. Look at Juja Road, Kangundo Road and Manyanja Road going towards Jogo Road, all very, very busy. In and outbound traffic on Jogo. Folks trying to go back and get onto Outer Ring because Landis Road is an absolute mess. We're also looking at traffic coming out of Westlands. It's heavy on James Gishuru going towards Waaki Way and coming off towards Limuru Road, also pretty busy. This is North Airport Road going towards the Eastern Bypass. There's something going on here. I'm not quite sure what's cooking, but if you have any information, please let us know because in both directions, bumper to bumper, not moving in some parts at all. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let's talk there as we try to keep things moving this morning.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
For teachers, uniformed forces, civil servants in new pay review, winners and losers in SRC salary review. The chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Lynn Mengich, is the guest in the Situation Room today. This new pay structure will be in effect for 2 years. It will be implemented in 2 phases. Why did you phase it out?
We phased it out because of the affordability and fiscal sustainability. When we began the review 4 years ago, we projected the review would require about 90 billion. We engaged the National Treasury, and in that we then agreed that for the first years we will freeze because the country then had just gone through the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know what that meant to the economy. So the country could not afford any pay rise. So for those first 2 years, we therefore froze the pay structures. Now, so these 2 years now is actually the 3rd and 4th year. So again, out of that initial figure, we actually arrived at about 80 billion to be spread over 4 years. So it means that the first 2 years is frozen. The next 2 years now, we face it because it's not affordable to take it at a go. Yes.
Now, you basically effect the pay rise for basic salary and other allowances. What are the main allowances that we're talking about here? House allowance, transport, health?
Only house allowance. And house allowance, today we have 4 clusters. Right, it's clustered.
Okay.
So what this review will do is, in the first year, which is this year, the cluster 4 will be reviewed upwards, not across board, but there will be a review, but within that cluster. The second year, the 4th cluster now will merge to cluster 3. So we will effectively have reduced from the 4 to 3 clusters in the 2-year period. So that's the only other allowance that was reviewed.
Okay. Teachers get the lion's share of the increment in this review. Looking at the complaints that have come from teachers over, it's very many years now, what was the reasoning for? And I guess a previous question would be, do you take into consideration what the temperature or what the current situation is in the country when a review like this takes place? And that could be sub 1 question. The other part then is that why then was the focus on teachers to get this large increment across board?
The first thing is, do we take into account the economic realities? And the answer absolutely is yes. Okay. We look at the economic realities, which is, can the country afford? The other thing that we look at is, where are the salaries of the public officers against the market trends? And the reason why we do that is because we've got to ensure that the public service can attract and retain the skills to deliver its services. So that means that the pay must have some relationship with the market trends. So we take that now to inform where we would like the pay to be. We have set a target of 50th percentile, meaning that we would like to be in the middle of the market, right? Some countries actually target, like Singapore targets to be the highest paid. And in fact, their public officers are the highest paid. We can't afford that as a country. So you can see our target is already a conservative target to be at the 50th percentile. But we are comfortable with that because our current attrition, people who leave the public service, our retention rate is at 90%. It was 95, it's come down to 90. But it is still within the acceptable level of retention. So we are okay with being at the 50th percentile. We then looked at where each sector currently is against that percentile, right? And some sectors are way above. I can tell you, for example, the state corporations, the Secretariat of Commissions are above 80th percentile. They're at 89th and 84th percentile. When we look at state officers are 45th percentile, universities are 49th percentile. Then we have two sectors that are actually way below. Teaching service is at 36th percentile, and the civil service, both national and county, are at 39th percentile.
Okay.
So that tells you why there is a large amount was allocated to the teaching service. That is one reason. But the other reason is the number. You know, they constitute almost half of the entire. Yes. So it's a question of numbers, but it's also a question of their current positioning to try and move them towards the 50th percentile. It still doesn't get there because we can't afford at the moment to get there. But progressively is to move them towards that so that we then harmonize pay.
Yes.
So you will see that actually this pay review is more about harmonization of pay. Otherwise, everyone would have gotten a pay increase. But that is not the case.
Okay. Can I look at specific teachers being the ECD? We saw a few months ago that there was a reduction in how much they are paid. And of course, there was uproar and flare-ups in terms of why would they go home with so little? What informs a decision like that?
First thing is that that matter is before court, so we may not go into a lot of details. So I can only say that one of the in this pay review, one of the things we've looked at is to ensure that no public officer earns lower than the minimum wage. And that is one of the factors we've looked at is in this pay review. And that obviously would include the ECD teachers and everyone else. The other thing in this pay review is that the ECD teachers will be mapped into the existing structure at the county government. So we will not have a separate structure for ECD teachers. It will be the structure for everyone else. They will be correctly mapped into that structure. But again, as I emphasize, we have ensured that everyone is above the minimum wage.
Well, you talked about the percentiles and how many of these sectors are actually staffed. You may look at it and say there are some parts of there are some sectors that have a bloated workforce. Am I right?
The word bloated.
It will be in comparison, comparable to the percentage of the whole, like you're saying, comparable to the services that they offer. For example, you've said commissions and parastatals are way above the 80th to the 89th percentile. And yet if you look overall, the service that they are offering, and overall the service that the teachers sector is offering, then you could say that commissions are bloated. And parastatals are bloated.
No, I think it's important to define what we mean by bloated and what we mean by these percentiles.
Okay.
The first one is these percentiles is not speaking about the amount of money being paid in a sector. It is looking at what you pay in a specific job compared to the private sector.
Okay.
So it is not speaking about whether the wage bill is higher or not. It is simply saying if I take a driver in a state corporation and compare to a driver in the private sector, in the market that we chose, where is their pay? So you see, that doesn't speak to a bloatation of the wage bill. It just simply says where you are. But to answer your question of do we have a bloated workforce, maybe that's a question you could ask. And my response is, again, it's generalizing it if we put it that way, because there are areas today I can tell you that we probably need more, as I mentioned earlier, the 3 sectors, and I don't want to go back there.
Yeah.
But there are areas where we still see some elements of duplication of functions, right? Between even the national and county government, there's some elements of duplication of functions. When we look at some organizational structures of specific institutions, there are some you will see there is a lot of oversplitting of roles. You will have roles being split to the extent that one job has probably 10 grades, you know. So you have officer 1, 2, 3, senior officer 1, 2, 3, you know. So those are specific.
Yeah.
It's not something that we would say it applies to everybody.
Sure.
But to acknowledge that there is need absolutely to relook at the organizational structures to ensure that they are actually optimal.
Which stick out for you? Which institutions or sectors stand out for you as, okay, so here we may need to
What stands
rationalize.
out? We need to look at the county governments. And county governments, one of the problems that we see every time there is a transition during the political period, there is an element of over-recruitment. Right? So we see that, and you will have seen that even in the current, when the new governors came in, most of them actually took a view that they needed to relook at their establishment. You will have seen governors who came out saying they have identified ghost workers. So there's a number of them carried out an audit. And clearly, it was clear that something is amiss, that there's recruitment that happens during a political transition that shouldn't happen. So yes, there is a concern around the county governments. The second sector is some of the state corporations, definitely. This is where we have seen a lot of oversplitting of roles, where you create jobs purely to speak to a career progression, to ensure someone can progress up to 10 grades, even when it is the same job, not because there is any distinct role they are playing.
Yeah.
So it is a balance between career progression and efficiency and effectiveness. So in some state corporations we see that. Universities, for example, is one I could definitely say. Most state corporations, for example, their job levels is 10, right? Universities operate with 20, right? So that just tells you something is not right there, that we've got to speak about having optimal structures.
Yes. Members of the county assembly are not likely to call you in for a cup of tea anytime soon. They seem to be a little bit upset that they're not recognized or considered for this kind of review. There's been clamour, and they say that in their heads, how they've done a comparison between members of parliament and the president should be the same way in which you should do a comparison between themselves and the county executive being governors. There doesn't seem to be some kind of review for them. What's the reasoning behind this, and what would you have to answer? Because today probably will be the day that you get a lot of complaints.
Well, what the MCAs introduced is a factor that is strange to the principles in the Constitution. Remember, when we started this conversation, we said there are very clear principles that the Commission will use to review pay. And we went through them, affordability, fiscal sustainability, performance and productivity, ability, the need to attract and retain public service, equal pay for work of equal value. None of those speaks about relativity between another job, and another, and therefore say because the president and the next one, this is the ratio, so we must apply. So I must say that factor that was introduced is actually not part of what is in the Constitution as a principle for pay determination, right? The second thing is to say what then determines our comparison of pay. And if I pick the principle of equal pay for work of equal value, which is in the SRC Act, it means that we determine the relative worth of the job, not as a ratio of another. We use job evaluation to determine the relative worth of the job. And that is what we have done for the role of an MCA, and then come up with a grade for that job. So that's the pay, therefore, is based on the grade of the job, not relativity with another state officer. And therefore, their pay is within the constitutional principles.
It's from what you have graded. What you've said equal pay for work of equal value.
Yes, please.
So how do you then bring an MCA to whatever grade you've placed them?
At the moment, they are in a
work
grade
of what equal value?
We call all jobs we assign a grade, right? We assign a job grade. When it comes to state officers, you will see, for example, that they are at D4, right? The president starts at F5, then the deputy F4, and we go all the way down. A CS is an F2. The next category, like a PS, is an F1. So that's the way it is structured. From then we go to D, then they are at D4.
Okay.
So it means that as a state officer, we then say if you're an F1, then all F1s have the same pay structure. So you will see, for example, if I talk about an F1, would be a PS, chairs of commissions, member of parliament. So you will see their pay is the same. So that means it is equal pay for work of equal value, because we have assigned the worth of the job based on a process. We have assigned a grade, and therefore that grade then has equal pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you come to D4, who else is in D4?
The magistrates.
So D4 is MCA, magistrates, and who else?
That's it.
Because we're looking at, let me just look at the structure, the current salary. Okay. President is a 1.44 million shillings, deputy 1.227, prime cabinet secretary, head of civil service 924,000, PSs, IGs, directors of NIS, yourselves in the commission 765, and then we have governor 924, deputy governor 621, county executive 404, member of the county assembly 144. Now the complaint that they've been having is 144 is not commensurate with the work that they are expected to do as legislators, as representatives of the people, as legislators, and to oversight the executive whose CECs are at 4 times their salary.
Right.
And they compare that to an MP who's doing the job of oversighting a PS who's earning 765 when an MP is earning 710, or an CS who is earning 900 and an MP is earning 710.
Okay, let's start with clarifying the pay of an MCA.
Yes.
What you have quoted there is the salary less sitting allowances.
Yes.
If you further go down, you will see how much the sitting allowance is, and you need to add that. So it's actually over 200,000. So it's not that figure. So we must acknowledge that sitting allowance is not pay. It is pay, right? But at the moment, there is a discussion that tends to say we don't acknowledge it as pay, right? We operate from a gross pay. Even when I talked about the market positioning, the percentiles I gave you earlier, it is based on gross pay. So we take into account.
And gross pay is basic salary plus
all allowances you earn. All allowances, including the sitting allowances.
Okay.
So that's the first clarification, is what does an MCA earn? Please add all the allowances that are based on. So for them, we add sitting allowance. Of course, we don't add DSA, that's facilitative.
Yeah.
So we add remunerative allowances.
And the sitting allowance is when they sit in committees or when they sit in plenary?
In committees. Plenary, that one ceased to apply from last year, right? So that's the first thing. The second clarification is, does it mean if I'm oversighting a higher role, I should be at the same grade? The Member of Parliament oversights the entire executive, including the President. Do they earn the same pay? Absolutely not.
But if you were going to do a comparison, and this is, I think, where the argument comes in, that if we're saying that they are going to oversight, and it doesn't mean that the person or the persons that they oversight, that they would earn commensurate to, or, to what they earn, they're saying that if you look at what they are earning in comparison to what they on this side are earning when they do oversight in the executive, that there is a greater difference, much greater difference.
The response to that is, does oversighting have anything to do with what you pay? Do you say, because I'm paid this, I cannot oversight you? You draw your mandate to oversight from the law. You don't draw your mandate to oversight from pay.
Okay.
So, and therefore, it doesn't matter if I've been given a role to oversight, I will oversight by virtue of the authority you derived from the law, from the Constitution. You don't derive it from pay. So that's very important to understand where we are coming from.
Sure.
Right? The second clarification is, when we evaluate the job, we take into account the three key roles. We take into account the role of representation, we take into account the role of oversight, and we take into account the third role of legislation.
Yeah.
So the entire three roles as specified in law is taken into account in evaluating the job.
They feel that the SRC diminishes their value and their work. They draw their mandate from the people who send them to the county assembly. They also have a very important role to play, which is to ensure that devolution works. And when devolution works, it means that development at local level actually does function. And when an MCA is not paid anything that compares to who they're oversighting or the work that they do, then they feel that they're let down. For example, they also talk about the allowances. So their only allowance right now is their committee sitting allowance. And then they do not receive any other support in terms of even getting the car grant. They say, when we get a car grant, it's then taxed. When a member of parliament is getting a car grant, it's tax-free. Why are we being treated different? Why are they being treated different?
The issue about tax, I may not speak to it, because remember, that is not the mandate of SRC. It's KRA that decides to tax, and I'm not sure that they are not taxing everyone equally. That one is really something that I can't speak to. We do set, KRA decides who they tax. And we cannot say you want to cushion anyone from tax. The Constitution is very clear that every person must pay tax. So that's a different conversation around taxation. Are they being treated fairly? First, let's go back to before the elections. Remember that we did gazette the pay. So even as an MCA, a member of parliament, as they were vying for these seats, they knew exactly what the pay structure looks like. It wasn't an ambush. It was published. Everybody knew. And you took the job knowing what you will be paid for. So that's very important to understand, that you took the job and you knew what the pay
They feel that you published this halfway through an interview process. Somebody has already started campaigning. Then just weeks to the election, which is when the final interview is taking place, the employer comes and says, oh, by the way, this job earns you this much. That is unfair.
I disagree, because it was in public participation way months before that. It was there. It was in the public domain. And surely, if I'm interested in a job and I see it is going through public participation, I must have seen it. Yes, we published about a month before, but before that, 2 to 3 months earlier, it had been in public domain. So again, I don't agree with that it was an ambush, because everybody knew what it looks like. And let me also say that, and it is not the first time that the salary of an MC was being set. It was there before, right? So again, even if you didn't know what yours would look like, you knew the previous.
You knew what it was.
You knew what it was.
Into it.
Exactly.
Lynn Mengich, thank you very much for joining us today. Lynn is the chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. She's been our guest. Keep it here for more. In the next hour, we speak to the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, 8 a.m.
Dennis Aseto. Busia Senator Okoh has said it will be impossible to undo the damage caused by the implementation of the Finance Act once they successfully demonstrate to the court how Kenyans were subjected to an unconstitutional tax regime. In an urgent application filed before the Supreme Court, Omtata says Kenyan taxpayers will be subjected to losses that cannot be remedied should the petition pending in the High Court succeed. It's on this ground that he has pleaded with the Supreme Court to suspend orders of the Court of Appeal that set the stage for the implementation of the Finance Act. And the Morticians and Allied Professionals Association of Kenya have condemned Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome over his recent remarks that politicians were hiring dead bodies from mortuaries and portraying them as victims of police brutality during the anti-government protest. In a statement, the Morticians faulted the IG over his claims, labeling them unfair to their professionalism as they reiterated their commitment to adhering to moral ethics and the rule of law. The association therefore demands that the IG to substantiate his sentiments by ensuring anyone culpable faces the law, failure to which he should withdraw his remarks, which they say taints their image negatively. And meanwhile, the families of the victims of anti-government protest on the cost of living have condemned IG Japhet Koome's statement that Azimio hired dead bodies from morgues to claim that the police used excess force while dispersing demonstrators. Some of the families want the police to be held accountable and justice served.
Watoto wangu hawakuwa wamekufa nikiwapeleka hospitali, walikuwa wanapumua. Hata tuliwafanyia postmortem, niko na kila kitu. Pia daktari alisema William alipigwa shingo, hii spinal cord ikakatika, na Brian walipigwa na hizi ribs. Ninaambia Koome kama kiongozi wa inzi hafai kuongea hivyo. Hakuna mwenye anapenda mtoto wake auliwe staili.
Sisi kama wazazi, sisi kama wakaaji wa Nyalenda hatujafurahia na hiyo statement. Kupoteza watoto wawili si kitu rahisi vile unaweza isema. Na ifatolu kuna doubt ati kitu haikufanyika, watu walitolewa wakaenda wakapelekwa pahali, kindly kuja tukupeleke Russia because tuko na evidence ya kutosha ati watoto walipigwa wakajeruhiwa kwa mkono ya mapolisi.
Human rights lawyer Davis Okombo says that the police hold the greatest responsibility when handling demonstrations and should therefore stop issuing and misusing their power.
There is the doctrine of command responsibility under the ICC statute, and therefore police need to know that if they continue violating human rights, at one point they can be criminally responsible for those actions.
Meanwhile, civil society group Muhuri wants IG Koome to resign from his position due to his remarks.
Hakika tumegadhabika sana na statement ya IG Koome. Kwanza tulisema Koome hafai kuwa mkubwa wa polisi kwa sababu matamshi yake ni ya uzushi. Amekuwa mwanasiasa. Siashike watu, ni mrongo. Polisi wameua watu, tuko na ushahidi, na maneno yake ni reckless. Hatakubaliana na masuala kama hayo. Tuataka ikiwezekana a resign na aingie siasa. Hataki masuala ya siasa ya uzi sindano, kushona na kufumua. Mtu yoyote ambaye ameua afaa afikishwe kizimbani.
He says that they have evidence of police misusing excessive force to quell the anti-government protest, which cannot be rubbished by the police boss.
Vile Rais Ruto amesign Malobo Protocol. Malobo Protocol ana immune ya yeye kutochukuliwa egg. Hii ni impunity. Na sisi kama watetezi wa binadamu tunasema serikali ni wadhalimu na polisi wameua watu na tuko na ushahidi, na tunataka wale wote waliohusika na kuumiza raia wa Kenya wakati wa maandamano wachukuliwe hatua za kisheria.
Interior CS Kithure Kindiki says that security apparatus were not aware of the presence of wild coin in the country. Appearing before the National Assembly, Kindiki said this is because they had not breached any security measures.
Ordinarily, security agencies do not interfere with businesses and operations and everyday activities unless there is reason to. When this company began its operations that attracted crowds, I think it was on a Saturday, reports calls were made, and the following day on Sunday, very early when we were doing our morning briefs from across the country, it was brought to the attention of the Cabinet Secretary for Interior that on the previous Saturday, there were these activities in 2 or 3 locations in Kenya. And we directed immediately that the activities associated with these people be put on the radar.
And Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua is in Mozambique in preparations for his boss, President William Ruto's visit to the country. CS Mutua in a statement said he was received by his Mozambique counterpart, Veronica Makamu, in Maputo during the Joint Permanent Commission for Cooperation. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, it's still really busy in the city. Something is going on this morning, and we're looking at heavy traffic on the Eastern Bypass. It's inbound, and all the way in from Utawala at the Ruai Junction, and then in towards North Airport Road, heading out towards Outer Ring. Very, very busy. All right, folks are complaining of quite some traffic on the expressway this morning. It's coming out of Westlands, going into the city. Not quite sure what has caused that, but then it's an eye to see what could be the issue. The Thika Superhighway awash with traffic, heavy going into the CBD, and we're looking at it also heavy coming out of Westlands, very heavy traffic as well, then coming in to the CBD from Gong Road, also Joko Road getting towards Landis, and then into the CBD at the Kamkunji roundabouts. Everywhere you look this morning, there's some traffic. We're going to have to get through this one with a lot of patience. Let us know what's going on where you are this morning. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your...
8. Good morning and welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. Is still gearing up for the 29th of October. What happens then? What happens then is the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is going down in Nairobi, flagging off at Uhuru Gardens and running along the Southern Bypass in Mombasa and in Kisumu and Kakamega and other towns. Standard Chartered has basically said in this over these 20 years, we've expanded the places that we run. So we run in Nairobi, but we also recognize that not everybody will be able to travel to Nairobi to come and participate in this race. So why not devolve it? And that's why it takes place also in other parts of the country. Yes. And then it was further devolved thanks to COVID and the lessons of COVID. And now there's a virtual run. So you can participate in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon from wherever you are. You know there are very many Kenyans all over the world and they'd like to be part of this. Maybe you were in the country last year and you've enjoyed participating in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. This year you are in a different country and you want to participate, or around that time you would like to participate but you will not be here. Well, it's okay. You can register for the virtual run. Just go to nairobimarathon.com, pay 2,000 bob, and you will be registered, and then you'll start receiving instructions and updates on the preparations for this year's. It is the 20th edition. All proceeds go to the Future Makers program, which helps young people, especially girls and people with disability, to learn, to earn, and to grow. The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon.
Indeed. Every day is a fun-filled day with GoTV. For kids of all ages, it will make your child entertained and grow their imagination with different shows. From Monday to Friday, your child can have full enjoyment with Garbage Boy and Trash Can at 6:45 p.m. More programs at 6:55 through to the weekend. Channel 90 on GoTV Super. Don't miss out. Download my GoTV app or dial *423# and stay connected to all the fun with GoTV. Love it.
Kabisa. That's what City is doing while he's away. He's taken some time off this week. He is enjoying some good time, not having to wake up early. But you know, City, he'll come here and tell us, oh, you know, I just found myself waking up early. Oh, you know, I still had to read a certain book that I was asleep. Then I remembered that book. So I got up and started reading it. And then suddenly I realized it's 7 a.m. So I put it away.
My day had gone.
My day had gone. So I was like, let me just get up and start doing what I wanted to do for the day. That is City, but we hope that he's actually enjoying himself. Water, water, water everywhere. In Kenya, water, 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 not everywhere. And that's a challenge, and we have to discuss that challenge. There's a ministry and several state departments. Water, sanitation, and irrigation. President William Ruto appointed Alice Wahome, the then MP for Kandara constituency, to join his cabinet and deal with this issue of water once and for all. Alice is here. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Eric. And Bari ya siku nyingi, how are you?
Salama kabisa. It's good. You know, every time we say, when you haven't seen somebody for that year, you say Happy New Year.
I think so. Happy New Year. Oh, yes, I don't know. But I came here, I think last year.
You were here last year.
Last year. Yeah, so this year, not yet.
Last time you were here,
didn't decide to
you
call
were
me.
a dejected member of parliament. You were battling many fronts. Now you are a triumphant cabinet secretary. So congratulations.
Maybe it appeared like I was dejected, but I was quite safe and comfortable. You know, it depends on the perspectives and narratives. I was never under any serious threat in terms of the voters. Of course, the system was quite uncomfortable with me, and especially the position I had taken. And so I would say I secured my seat with quite a good margin. Quite easily and quite a good margin of... although that was the lowest I had for my 3 terms, 39,000 votes, the person behind me had left them with about 20,000. But luckily, with my exit, that same person was able to secure the seat. And I guess the blessings come in their own time.
Very good.
And I have a lot to thank the president for finding it fit to nominate me and appoint me finally for this particular position. Yes.
I've also been appointed by CT to be the one who gives daily proverbs. And I also have to thank CT for bestowing me this honor, such that when a cabinet secretary comes, I give her the proverb. This week's proverbs are from West Africa, these countries of around Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, the people called the Songhai.
I've never been good at proverbs, but let's go.
Listen to this one.
Yeah.
It's an easy one. The river, see water? The river is too large, but it still wants to become bigger. The river is too large, but it still wants to become bigger. That's it.
Wow. The river wants.
The river is big, but it still wants to become bigger.
There is good and bad about that. It could become bigger, and normally rivers become bigger during the floods, during the rains. And when they become bigger than their course, they become a disaster unless we regulate the flow. But I think that also speaks to ambition. You know, there is nothing wrong if the source, if the product is good, for it to become bigger. As long as we can contain and use it properly.
As long as that's it.
Yeah.
As long as then it's used properly.
Used properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Goes into that question of how much is enough.
I think in parameters of my ministry, for example, what is enough depends on our strategy and the demand that is available, at any particular moment. So when it is maybe, and how much is enough, maybe that can only be negative when you talk about how much money is enough, for example, for an individual. For a country, it's okay. How much is enough depends on, again, the country's development plans.
Yep.
You know, how much is enough. There are people who want to acquire a mass, and you don't know how much is enough for them. But I think equitably, resources should be distributed to serve the nation. Yes.
I think it's if you're acquiring at the expense of others,
it is
then it's
obviously
negative.
immoral.
Yeah.
It is wrong, it's
But
criminal.
if it is morally acquired, then
Properly acquired, legally acquired, then it's okay.
There should be no limit.
There should be no limit. The sky should not even be the limit.
That's true.
Yes, it is.
You have a big mandate as the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation, and Irrigation. There's a lot. What have you learned in that ministry, and what have you now mapped out as the mandate that you have?
Let me first say that all the cabinet secretaries have their mandates. And you have heard of the one government approach.
Yes.
Meaning we have taken the same old skill of responsibility is corrective. In my ministry, since I entered, the last 1 year has been quite challenging because first, it's obviously a different area and you have to go through the documentation, you have to go through the plans, you have to go through the policies, you have to go through the strategic plans, you have to understand the language. It's quite a lot of it is quite scientific because most of it is engineering, and therefore you have to familiarize yourself even with the terminologies, the language, and also a new setup because from a legal fraternity, then I'm in an engineering kind of managed ministry. Then obviously I have to be alert and careful. And at it, yes. But it's interesting, and apparently, because my specific role is to give leadership and guidance.
Yep.
I have technical people who help me to deal with some of these technical areas, and I must say the ministry also has we may have capacity problems in terms of the numbers, the personnel, but we have also very good, officers that have been there for long, that know their staff, that have been part of the processes of preparing the documents that we are implementing, our designs, our surveys. From geologists to civil engineers to hydrologists, all these are people. Of course, including environmental experts, these are people that I have learned to use their knowledge and skills. Yes, so I would say that it's doable. We have a big mandate. The ministry has 9 key institutions, national agencies, and maybe that's something that Kenyans should understand. We have 9 water works development agencies that helps the ministry after policy and strategy to implement the projects or those plans. And these are, for example, in Nairobi, Kiambu and Murang'a, we have the earthy water development works. When you go to Nyeri, Meru, Embu, Tharaka Nithi, and a bit of Marsabit and Isiolo.
And Laikipia.
And Laikipia, partly.
Parts of Laikipia.
But mainly, there we have Tana water. Laikipia largely is served by Central Rift Valley Development Water Works.
Okay.
So that's the third one. And I said Nyeri and the rest is Tana water, Embu, Meru, or Tharaka. That's Tana water.
Okay.
Then in the eastern, we have Tanathi Water Development Agency.
Machakos, Kajiado, part of Narok, and then up to Nyandarua, actually, and Laikipia. We'll have, Nyandarua and Laikipia, I said we have Central Rift Valley. It also does Kajiado partly. So Tanathi will also deal with part of Kajiado, Yep.
But then we'll go to Machakos, Makueni, Kitui, And then when you go to the Lake Basin, Lake Victoria Basin, we have two main ones, Lake Victoria North and Lake Victoria South, water development agencies. And then the northern, we have the Northern Water Development Agencies. And then we have another one in between, the North Rift, because we found the lift is fairly big. It can't be served by Central Rift alone. So there is the North Rift in between. So we have 9. And then we have other institutions for regulation, We have the WASLEB, that is a regulatory board that licenses extraction, licenses the service delivery, mainly licensing the water service providers.
Yes.
And people need to know that the water service providers are not directly under the ministry. We help them with the policy, because quality assurance and standard is by the ministry, but they are supposed to be directly under the county governments because that is service provision. What we are doing with the large bulk water development and management at ministry level, and you see, water is also devolved. But it is the service delivered, the service provision that actually is at the county level. Therefore, all these companies, water company, Nairobi Water, all these Muswaskos and Muaskos, for example, in Muranga, Nabuasco, Mawasco, whatever, all those companies are under the county governments. Right now, we have encouraged all of them to convert, because apparently before, because of the Area Water Act, they were supposed to operate more or less like private companies with a lot of autonomy, but we have also realized that because they manage public assets, it is necessary that there is a public administration and oversight within the government and operate within the ambit of county governments. So then, of course, I have the Water Resource Authority that is very instrumental, because that is the authority that licenses the abstraction of water from any of the sources, from the river, from the sea, from the boreholes, from the lakes, from the ponds, the amount of water you can abstract, because you get a permit to allow you certain volumes. You don't just abstract what you want. So, that will tell you, no, this is excess. We don't have that amount in this river. And of course, they have a big challenge because people in this country do not work within the legal frameworks. People practice a lot of impunity. You'll find Latiff goes and digs a borehole, and then maybe the borehole, he has not even received any, he doesn't know that he's supposed to seek,
have a permit.
Permit and authority, in fact, and the environmental studies and all that to allow you to start even digging the borehole. And also the water must be tested, because some water may also not be suitable for drinking, for use, domestic use. And we found many boreholes are sunk and then they are closed because of the excess fluoride.
I guess, Waziri, you started to go into it.
Yes.
And, as you took over this ministry, what would you say are the problems? Because there is a water problem in the country, at whatever level you want to look at it at. What would you say are the challenges that you then want to go into to start to fix, even as then we look at the ambition of water projects in the country moving over the next few years?
Yeah, we have a plan for 2030 as a country for various plans. We know there is also the 2030 vision, plus also the SDG we must achieve by 2030, SDG 6. That is making sure that we have access to water to every home. Basically, every person under the Constitution, Article 43, is entitled to adequate, safe drinking water. That is within our Constitution. And that mandates the government, both the county and the national government. So even from that premises, then we look at what are the challenges, where are we in terms of how much water do we have. I'm advised by my technical people and the ministry. The records show us that right now we have about 23 available water, 23 billion cubic meters of water. That amounts to about 450 cubic meters of water. I mean, per annum. Per capita, per individual. That means every person, because you have to estimate per the population. So the 23 billion divided by a population of about 50 million, you'll have roughly about 450 cubic meters of water per day. We are there is, of course, against the international standards or the standards required to sustain properly, to say you have sufficient water is 1,000 cubic meters per annum per person. Per capita. Yeah. So with that, then you know that we are very far to achieve that. Of course, some countries around us actually have achieved, because depending on the amount of rains in a space, like Uganda is not a rain scarce country. It's not a water scarce country. They have more water than us. Ethiopia, because they also have more rivers than us, bigger rivers. Uganda, the rain is always falling. They have heavy rains. Tanzania apparently also is ahead of us. So the challenge here is, how do you then, because we have rain, we could say we have quite sufficient rain in some parts of the country. The challenge is storage. How do we store our water when the rains come? Like now we are told El Nino, the forecast says that there will be an El Nino. For you to store water to sufficient capacity, because if you don't have rains throughout the year, or there are other years that season after season there will be drought, like we have suffered, then you need, when the rains come, you need to store either from the rivers, the overflows. All these overflows should not be destroying infrastructure and destroying, especially from the rivers and going to the oceans and the seas. We should be storing. And therefore, the case for storage is one of the strategy that we have. We have, of course, two other national institutions, the National Irrigation Authority and the National Water Harvesting and Storage Authorities. Those are other agencies that we have. They are the ones that will help us with sufficient strategy, because we have policy and strategy in place. What we are now working on is funding, resource mobilization, because we already know the sites that should help us to store the water, both for irrigation, domestic use, and industrial use, because those are three different areas.
When someone hears all this,
yes,
and they think, okay, so we have to think about how to harvest this water, how to store the water, somebody will think capital intensive. But is it necessarily capital intensive?
Water infrastructure, I guess in our planning before, was not seen as a capital intensive, or there was possibly oversight or lack of bringing water, including at United Nations levels, at international decision-making levels. Water has secured a very small space in terms of speaking to the need, the investment, because when the discussion is not on the highest decision-making tables, then you don't secure enough funding. So if you look, people have been speaking more about maybe roads construction, electricity construction, and connectivity, but water has received maybe poor coverage in terms of, or attention. The infrastructure is huge, because constructing one dam, depending on the the volume of water that is available, because again when you identify the site, then you are able to be guided, you are able to know how much water you get, and the costing is per cubic meter. So the cost of each dam will be assessed by how much volume of water, the capacity of that dam. The infrastructure is huge, because you have the dam construction, you have the water treatment plant, then you have the piping. You can understand that from the dam side, the pipeline, the main pipeline. And then, of course, you have the distribution networks. That is a huge infrastructure layout. And so it should secure adequate funding, just like maybe health, education, and roads and defense,
So the city has been arguing, and we always have this conversation.
Yes.
When we talk about water, we're talking about, let's say, and you'll tell us 100 dams, that's the target. Let's do 100 mega dams in the country. They'll be capital intensive. Let's bring in investors who will put in all this money. How about starting from bottom up? How about starting from water harvesting encouragement at domestic level, then you go into village level or such other levels, construction of water pans. This is a conversation that's happened in previous administrations for a long time. Let's do water pans and then we do dams. Why not start our conversation at the water pan level?
Okay, first, the water pans are not for domestic use. The water pans are mainly for the household water pans that we have a conversation about, and in fact we have implemented that program, are for household irrigation.
Yes.
For you to drink that water, you'd have to either treat, boil, and the like. So that has been going on. Indeed, we have so far, I think we have constructed about 125,000 small water pans. Basically very small, but they are good because they go into improvement of livelihood. That is food security issue. And therefore, that program is ongoing, just like we have other small programs for irrigation. And those small programs, you are talking about 100 acres, maybe 500 acres, 1,000 acres, and they speak to, eventually when they are added up, we are talking about having an irrigation acreage of about so far 694,000. That includes the bigger scales, in the bigger traditional schemes that
irrigation schemes.
Yeah, the irrigation scheme, looking at the Bura, the Hola, the Mwea, all those added together. The total we have to date. And then the smaller ones, the community-based, the expanded smaller programs, total 694. And that therefore says we don't have food security because we need to irrigate much bigger acreage, and the target going forward is about 3.3 million acres. We between now and 5 years, we need to stretch ourselves up to 1.8 if we can. And those are our plan, and we are planning for that, 1.8 million acres. We will, how we shall get that? We are starting with expansion of the existing schemes that we have, because they have capacity. If we rehabilitate the systems, increase the catchment, the intakes, and basically the canals, ensure that there are no breakages, no leakages, those will give us an extra maybe another 700 or so acres of irrigated land. And therefore I would say we are on course. So you are asking, why not start from bottom going up? We still all these programs are supposed to direct them. Doing a dam doesn't mean you are doing at the top. The dam is supposed to reach the people. You are doing that so that you can ensure downstream you take water to the people. Of course, the conversation should also now change, and I have been encouraging that every home should have some form of water storage, so that you can start by harvesting water during the rains. Then the next question is, because this water may also still not be safe, and you see the government has a responsibility that the water we drink must be safe. How then do we ensure that water that your mom, my mom, they have stored, this water is safe for drinking? We must encourage hygiene practices, like even boiling the water, and storing in the traditional. Was it not a? There were like a pot. There were some pots. Those pots are kind of no longer there. We use jerry cans and whatever. And I think the pots were good because they also kind of were refrigerators in a way. So those kind of practices should be some things that we need to remind ourselves and go back to them. But also, then you must also know that the roofs, most of the roofs are asbestos, and that again is obviously going to give us carcinogenic impunities, and we must be able to say what kind of roof. And we shouldn't have those kind of roofs sheets of that kind of nature should actually be banned. I think as a government, those are areas that are receiving attention. And in our schools, again, we have, shortages of water. We have a program for water for schools. But we are also speaking with the members of parliament so that, answering your question, we can also utilize that particular opportunity to ensure that we can also help the schools to store water. Why? They can help us with their CDF to remove the roofs that may not be okay, or even create a specific roofing for water storage and buy tanks. We in part of our program for schools is also buying the storage tanks, and all my agencies will buy tanks regularly per year. We have budgets that allow that. So in every program, you'll find that we have boreholes, because sometimes we are doing a dam, but the areas above the dam may not be able to benefit from that water. And that's a story that you have had sometimes as having conflict with the host communities of the dam. But naturally, where the dam is placed may not be able to benefit from that water. But we are working on our designs in a different way so that you don't plan too far from the dam. You start planning from the dam site so that as many people as possible around the dam can receive a certain percentage. We call it even 20%, 10 to 20% of the water that you remove from there, because really it doesn't make sense for me to bring water to Nairobi and leave the area that I have removed this water from without a single drop. And it is possible to give some of that water to the area, to the local communities.
Let's take a
so
break.
That is a new policy that we have adopted.
You are a Muranga person. This is a Muranga Nairobi conversation.
Muranga Nairobi and also the Jandarua have the same issues.
With the Samoa
and many other. I think the case for Muranga was the loudest.
Yes.
Yeah.
24 minutes to 9. The Honorable Alice Wahome is the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. She's here with us so we can talk about this ambitious government project and plans for ensuring that people actually have access to safe drinking water close to them, that we have access to water that we can use for irrigation and other purposes, and that we also have sanitation services that make sense. Keep it here for more. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Some very nice mature music.
It really took me back to my days, and I can just feel
Partly cloudy in Nairobi this morning at 13, highs of 20 and lows of 11. It's 18 and a bit of sun in Nakuru, highs of 26. 19 will be the high in Nyeri at 13 currently, and it's 16 in Eldoret with highs of 23. We'll see lows of 12. At 24, Mombasa will see highs of 29 today and lows of 22, and 29 will also be the high in Malindi, where it's currently 25. 23 in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 18, and 21 in Kakamega with highs of 28 and lows of 15. 20 in Kampala, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 29 in Dar es Salaam, where it's 25, coming down to lows of 21. It's 6 degrees in Johannesburg, highs of 17 and lows of 5, and 25 in Lagos with highs of 30. We'll see highs of 33 in Kinshasa, where it's currently 21.
Spice up your life.
Still crazy traffic in a lot of parts of the city today. Langata Road, touching on Raila Odinga Way, then through towards Aerodrome, out towards Uhuru Highway. It's busy as you go through to the city centre, out towards Westlands. Inbound traffic from Westlands also quite the thing. We're looking at traffic also coming in on Waiaki Way into the city, and on the Thika Superhighway, still heavy as you go out towards Mangari Mathai Way or then towards Muranga Road. Keeping an eye on things with you this morning. Let us know where you are. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Minutes to go with a conversation with Alice Wahome, the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Article 43 of the Constitution. So yes, you're not an engineer, but you are a lawyer. And when it comes to Constitution, you understand it back to front.
Yeah.
43 of the Constitution, 1B. Every person has the right to accessible and adequate housing and to reasonable standards of sanitation. That falls squarely under you. Then go to 1D. Every person has the right to clean and safe water in adequate quantities. Mheshimiwa, when people talk about this and they start arguing, they ask, so does this mean that the government has a responsibility to give me water and sanitation and housing and all? Or does it mean that I have a right, so I have a right to go and look for the water? What's the nexus between this right, government, and the citizen?
It is a responsibility for all of us because, first and foremost, the money that we shall use to construct the dams is money that the Kenyan will pay. And therefore, we are not far from the person. Secondly, that once we develop the national government's main responsibility is to develop the resource, the water resource, also sustain, maintain it, and then manage for the benefit of the people. And therefore, once we release it to our agency, when the agency and the contractor come up with the water developed, that water then, the end result is the water service provider to the person. The individual has the responsibility to then pay for that water and ensure that we also manage the water properly without wastage. And that's why we also regulate how much the people will pay for the water. And so the connection, there is a connection through. There is no dichotomy, in my view, and therefore we all need to understand our part to play. You will find that in between there are people who will want to steal the water, and that's why we have a police unit now for purposes of securing and disrupting those kind of people and maybe causing arrest through our water service providers. Leakages which are either caused or forced by people, and so that then they can bring the bowser, the water bowsers. Sometimes when you see this sudden rise of bowsers traveling all over and delivering water, sometimes they have been generated by commercial merchants who are partly within the system, with the system. And mainly sometimes it is people within and outside, like internal kind of collusion, inside collusion. And we are working closely with the county governments through the water service providers to weed out that, because they must be the ones responsible to ensure that that doesn't happen. And that gives them actually a big problem, because they have something we call non-revenue water. Non-revenue water means you go and develop about 20,000 cubic meters of water per day. But the water that will be billed, will be paid for, is 10,000 cubic meters per day. Most of them are ranging between 35 and 45, meaning that percentage is water unaccounted for, lost water, lost money. And therefore, sustainability for the water companies have become a big challenge. Even their own records, book records, so that they can be able to maintain their systems, because systems, there's work personnel, their management issues, service and maintenance, must be maintained from the water. So we have challenged them that they must change. We are working with them for capacity building, and partners, especially World Bank, ADB, are very willing to work towards the reduction of that to a reasonable, maybe amount, that level that is maybe understandable, or maybe a 10% to 15% maximum. The rest is really careless, is theft. The rest is theft, and they will not have an easy time with me. and my teams, because we are on them. The county governments must put their houses in order. They must put people who are professional as MDs of the water companies, because the national government may do so much, put in heavy investment, like you have now seen our very ambitious program of 100 PPP dams, which I will speak to. Then this money will eventually, at the end of the day, be paid by Kenyans, because it is Kenyan taxpayer who will pay. Then we end up with people making it their own business to steal the water. That will have to stop. So we need professionalism in the water service provision so that we can avoid and deal with that. And then also make them viable institutions that can on their own be able to approach an investor, be able to approach a banking financial service and get money to maintain their systems and services,
and to expand provision
of
water services.
Yes, of water services.
Speaking of those water services, again, as we started, it's a huge mandate because there's a lot to look into.
Yeah.
But then one of the very pressing matters, even as we talk about development, Waziri, is that the dormitory towns of cities oftentimes don't fall on the priority list when it comes to sanitation services. If you want to look at Nairobi and look at its dormitory towns, Ruiru, Kitengela, Syokimau, these areas, sanitation, Rongai, all of this. It doesn't matter if you're looking at Nairobi, if you're looking at Kisumu, if you're looking at Mombasa, the developments that come around these larger cities have problems when it comes to sanitation and sewerage services. And when I say problems, I mean that they do not exist. Kitengela, as an example, had the residents of a certain part of Kitengela put together their own money for a sanitation system to at least look like something.
Yeah.
This was before you, of course. But then there continued to be issues whereby these services don't exist. Before we even talk about water reaching their taps coming from government, people exist on boreholes, sanitation sewage systems do not exist, and then we are starting to wonder, will these be part of the priority list when it comes to making sure that those sanitation services are available to folks who don't necessarily live in the big cities?
The sanitation status in the country is at 26%. I found it at 26%, 27%. Apparently because of new towns coming up quickly without proper planning. Now we have dropped to 26%. In most rural areas, those towns are in the rural areas. Within the big cities, sanitation access is at 32%. So that tells you, Ndu, that the whole country is really in a very bad situation. And that's why we are speaking to sufficient funding. We have it is called Small Towns Program, in terms of water and the sanitation program. And our planning now includes both the sanitation, water and sanitation. The planning before was only for water. In a way, because that's the only way you can explain that for water, we are at 71% and sanitation at 32% in big towns, and these other villages, and small towns at 26%. So we have to balance out that and put a lot of effort in resource mobilization now for water and sanitation. And therefore, I can tell you that the plan will now include all this. Nairobi is complicated because of the huge population rise, and it is and the planning also has been haphazard. If you see some towns just come up, and you are not even supposed to be allowing some of these developments, to be very honest, if the services are not there. The authorities are supposed to ensure that there is road access, there is access to water, electricity, and basic sanitation, sanitation. But they would allow constructions, because of corruption, they would allow constructions to come up without an idea of where the pipeline for water is, where the service line for these other facilities, where the service lines are. So we obviously then would expect that even the county governments, as they're allowing the plannings, they must also liaise with the service providers, with the other ministries so that we can have a proper approach before we allow mushrooming of settlements everywhere, and then the sanitation becomes a crisis. And I can tell you, even the current systems, even in Nairobi, need a lot of overhaul because they are insufficient. They are the old 1960, 1970, and Earth Water has a huge task to deal with that. Luckily, it's not so hopeless because the conversation we are having this particular term and regime, the Kenya Kwanza government's conversation on this whole discussion and the issue of water and sanitation and irrigation has received a lot of goodwill and attention from both partners and also from the government itself, because the president is one of the biggest champions of water now in the country, and he's he doesn't leave us give us any breathing space into where we are on the 100 dams.
100. Before we move to the dams, now that we touched on sanitation,
yes,
I think the figures and the statistics that you've just given us speak loudly about very many things. 26% access to sanitation in rural areas. 32% access to sanitation in urban
towns,
areas. That tells you 68% of population in urban areas don't have access to sanitation. Let's just break it down and say what we are saying. What we are saying is people don't have access to toilets. There's a lack of appreciation, in my view, by government and politicians, and to some extent even the citizens, on what that means. It's a lack of understanding of connecting sanitation and the basic dignity. If you don't have access to a toilet, you don't have access to dignity. You're denied of a basic dignity. There are populations in this city who don't have a toilet, who only have access to a pit latrine, which you pay some amount for, and then that is basically emptied by people who push mkokoteni, carrying a drum of poop and going to dump it in a river. So how do we shift this conversation, Mheshimiwa, so that we don't only think water sanitation, even the UN has combined them, water and sanitation, and water is the one that is louder. Sanitation is not as loud. How do we increase this? Because we have to look at over 60% in both urban and rural areas getting access to sanitation.
In our rural areas, we also we encourage, and we must understand how difficult this problem is in the rural areas, because the settlements are sparse and all over. We need basic pit latrines, but it is how the pit latrine is done that then the county governments with their public health inspectorate departments, they need to give guidelines on what type of toilet it is. Is it being dug near a water source? Because then that becomes another problem. Or is it safe where it is, So I think for the rural areas, for the moment, even as we plan as a country for maybe 2063, to ensure that maybe we are able to have sanitation pipelines, all over the country, then we must be able to come up with very good. And we so far, if you remember, when we began as a country, there were people who went home to home inspecting whether there is a pit toilet, and if there wasn't, then there was either a fine or a demand that this must be done within this particular time.
Yeah, but yet today we still have
some people open defecation, forest, where everywhere, all over in the farms, that is actually illegal.
Back to the top, which is where you sit.
So where we sit.
At the ministry level, we don't have a sanitation policy. I know there was a move to develop a national sanitation management policy, which went through the stages. Where are we with that in terms of implementation and implementation of the policy? Financing it, resourcing it, so that we look at sanitation differently. Because then it talks about sanitation not just looking at digging a sewer line everywhere, but looking at new technology and new ways of approaching sanitation.
The sanitation policy is developed. Somewhere we are having a small challenge, but it is in Parliament. We will deal with it. We are implementing it so far because we don't see much problem. I told you that we have water and sanitation for small towns going on.
Yeah.
And that is being guided by our policy, that the policy is where you have people, where you have water, there must be sanitation. And the sewerage systems, over the weekend, for example, Othaya town did not have any sanitation within the whole town. And you can imagine where is Othaya and, the historical background about Othaya. They didn't have a sanitation. And that speaks to almost all other small towns of that size, because it's not even a medium-sized town. It's the small towns. So now we are working on that. We would want every single town where you have more population than what you can call rural to have its own independent water and sanitation, which then means you need a treatment plant for the sanitation, and then the water wastage. Also, the wastewater management, because that's also now another challenge. Wastewater management policy is there. And so sewerage, water, wastewater, all that discussion must go together. There is no way we can continue giving water without sanitation. That is no longer... okay, there are some projects that, of course, were designed earlier. But when they are going to town, we are recommending that as we move with those projects to completion, then the water system within the towns, within the cities, is sorted so that it can be able to receive the volume that is expected.
What is the plan, though? Is there a plan that does not look at having to go to the ground and putting pipes and taking sewer to one sewer treatment plant? Is there any other approach that the government can have? If you look at when you talked about Syokimau, Kitengela, these areas are already inhabited.
Yes.
You're not going to start digging up places and saying, now connect your toilet to this pipe.
We will, let me tell you, of course there could be new ways. There are new ways of sanitation, but we will dig. For now, I can tell you the approach is, we normally use the roads. There are roads.
Yes.
We use the already existing access roads because some areas are complicated. And that's why you hear we also buy way leaves and what have you. But there is sufficient roads to be able to access. But also, we must discourage a situation where people are just putting up houses everywhere carelessly. And the governors have a difficult task in that. So where we have gone, even places like Narok, we have managed to do sewer in Narok, water and sewerage. And those particular challenges you are speaking to.
I'm sorry, but I'm not hearing an answer. I'm not getting an answer.
Did not
here.
stop us from
I'm not
doing
getting
that.
an answer that says this is the plan for the areas that are already built, inhabited, that don't have a trunk sewer. This is the plan for any future development. Say, for example, we are having a conversation with all the counties, do not license new developments until you get this, and there shall be a ban when it comes by December 31st. If you go to apply on the 1st of January, you will not unless you have. I'm not getting that answer. I'm just hearing there'll be challenges. There are challenges here. There have always been challenges.
It's not that easy to deal with the human beings. That's we must be practical. This is Kenya. The buildings are already there. You can only pull down those buildings that need to be pulled down, and that's where you come with the cases of compensation. Because obviously the planning should have been the responsibility of the government. If you ask me that what is the plan, we have planned for all towns to have sewer. If you tell me that we will now ask me whether are we going to stop the construction, that is that is a county government. The policy and advice that we have given is that their plans should go well with our plans, because actually sanitation also is a responsibility of the county governments.
I can tell you it's a mess in these areas
but it is a responsibility of the county governments also. But because under the constitution, we cannot run away from this responsibility. We are working closely together. Luckily, most of our programs, we link very well with the COG. It is when we come now to implementing that we are finding county government's approach is more or less prohibitive. It's not proactive enough that as we start a program or a project, say water project, we would expect then the county government, after we have planned at our level, take up that so that at the linking point, then they are able to come up with their own master plans for their counties. And we have had discussions with the other partners so that we have master plans for each and every county to deal with the question you are asking.
Waziri.
Yeah.
Everybody is saying she needs to be here for another hour. Because there are many questions and conversations to have.
Yes.
Stay on for a bit. Let's hear the news first. It's
Stop
9
your
a.m.
life.
The Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Services, Alice Wahome.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Salaries and Remuneration Commission Chairperson Lynn Mengeja said that the commission is independent and makes its decisions without interference from any government department. She told Spars FM that the decisions to review allowances enjoyed by committees were arrived at by the SRC without influence from any quarters.
We are independent. We make independent decisions. But when we talk about being independent as constitutional commissions, that does not mean that we are not interdependent. There is an element of interdependence and collaboration. But at the end of the day, the decision remains with the commission. You make that decision independently.
Mengeja also said that the new changes are aimed at creating equality within public service and reducing spending.
To do the work that you are appointed to do, pay an allowance. So we're saying that is double compensation. Or you want to develop a policy and you go for a retreat. But remember, you're doing the job you are appointed to do policy work, because someone must be appointed to do policy. But what do? You pay retreat allowance. So again, you can see that is double compensation.
Teachers and police officers are among civil servants whose salaries were reviewed in the statement announced yesterday by their commission. Now, Registrar of Trade Unions Beatrice Mathenge now faces a 6-month jail sentence for contempt of court in a case filed against her by the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. In the case, KMPD officials, according to an affidavit sworn by Secretary General Davji Atela, told the court that they were duly elected to their roles on July 11, 2022 and communicated the same to Mathenge for registration on June 13, 2022. The registrar, however, failed to do so, prompting the union to move to the Employment and Labour Relations Court in Nairobi, where they received a favourable ruling on February 10, 2023. Now, the government has put in place measures to ensure that the interests of teachers who teach in insecure regions are highlighted. Appearing before the Senate Education Committee, CS Ezekiel Machogu said the government has also made plans that will see teachers teaching in such regions are locals. Apologies for that. A bit on will be played a bit later. Now, Police Constable Jackson Konga, who's alleged to have shot dead his colleague in Nakuru City, will be detained for 14 more days to allow police complete investigations. Principal Magistrate Isaac Orenge said that the prosecution had proved beyond reasonable doubt that there was need to hold him further. The officer shot his superior, Sergeant Christopher Kimeli, under unclear circumstances.
And I'm persuaded that the investigator has laid the basis for the issuance of the orders. Now, the order is that the respondent then is to be remanded at the Central Police Station for the next 14 days. This is for purposes of enabling the investigator to complete investigations. We will then mention this matter 23rd of August.
The Kenyan government has signed bilateral air services agreement with the neighbouring Federal Republic of Somalia. Roads and Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen in a statement confirmed that the two nations reached consensus months after they reviewed the agreement in March. CS Murkomen revealed that the agreement, which seeks to streamline air services within the two previously conflicting nations, was signed alongside his Somalian counterpart, Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation, Dosa Osman Egel. And Al-Shabaab terror group have attacked and destroyed a communication mast in a village in Mandera County. The attack has disrupted communication services in Sukela area. Mandera County Commissioner Amos Mariba said the suspects used explosives and guns to attack the tower. He also said that no one was injured in the attack, while admitting that more security officers have been deployed to the area to boost security. The attack comes at a time when Al-Shabaab is allegedly planning to carry out more attacks in the northern part of the country. It should be noted that in July, Mandera Governor Mohammed Aden Khalif claimed that 60% of the county is controlled by the militia. And Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has accused the World Bank of using money to try to coerce the government over its controversial anti-gay legislation. His comments followed an announcement by the US-based global lender that it was suspending new loans to the East African country over what is considered among the world's harshest laws targeting LGBTQ communities. Museveni, who signed the measures into law in May, posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, that Ugandans will develop with or without the loans. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Still heavy on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city. Getting onto Wangari Maathai might just be a little bit challenging. James Gishoro also still busy as you cross over towards Wayaki Way. There's traffic coming in from the Northern Bypass, heavy on Kitisuru, and we're also looking at it heavy on Karura Road and out towards Red Hill into United Nations Avenue, out through Limuru Road. All of this is very busy still this morning. Outer Ring had a mess and it still is quite busy, and North Airport Road was really sticky, still very, very sticky on the Eastern Bypass. Not quite sure what caused that traffic this morning, but it's still there. This one you have to navigate through, and we'll keep an eye on that as we get out of traffic hour in about half hour or so. Let's see if that has whittled down in any way. Spice of MKE on Twitter. Talk to us there as we try to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start.
The Cabinet Secretary has agreed to give us a couple of more minutes so we can exhaust. No, we will not be able to exhaust. So we can just talk a little bit more about her docket, the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, CS Alice Wahome. We go on. Please remember to register for the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. It takes place on the 29th of October. NairobiMarathon.com. 2,000 shillings is what you need. Waziri, let's talk about this big plan. The president has talked about it more than once. 100 megadams. And what is new about it is public-private partnership.
Yes.
Now, this is big because what we are saying is what we've seen PPPs. We've seen the expressways PPP. We've seen IPPs that are PPP. Now, water dam, that is PPP. Explain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Latiff. You earlier on asked me whether we need a lot of infrastructure for water. The expense involved is huge, I said that. And therefore, where we are, because we're about 10-15 years behind in terms of access to water. We require heavy investment, and for us to move quickly, we have realized that bulk water development is the answer, meaning storage through the 100 dams. The 100 dams is not like it's only 100. That's what we want to start with. And we could even go to 200, because many countries have actually gone that route. For us, the difference is that for us to raise this money, we have decided that it must be now public-private partnership. We don't have the money where for you to catch up with the issues, the challenges that Ndu is talking about. If you take into account that to do one dam, you require between 10 and 20 billion, depending on the size. Some dams go up to 30 billion. For me to do 100 dams, then you can do a quick calculation, even take an average of 20 billion shillings.
You need the entire devolution budget.
Yes. The entire, maybe health budget, devolution and education put together. We don't have that. And therefore, why not interest the investors? And they are willing. We have called out for expression of interest, which we put into the public through advertisement. And the response was fantastic, I would say so. The interest so far shown is huge. And between now, and we have opened those expression of interest bids. We have both international and local interested persons and contractors. Then from that, the contractors will work with the investors in terms of financial institutions. And we are expecting that by November, we will be able to get back the proposals. From 20th of August, this August, we will start now, possibly, they will start developing the proposals, because we have opened those expression of interest. We now want to release the request for the proposals to them after we are done with that scrutiny. That request to return back the proposals should not take more than 4 months, because that's where they will pick the dams that they are interested in, and then give us specific proposal for it, meaning the quotations,
So it's a technical and financial
It's a technical analysis, both technical, scientific, and financial analysis, also showing where they will maybe get funding from, And that then will tell us how many will be able to take up the constructions.
Okay, so then this number of 100, was it a proclamation before the understanding that there would be a certain number of investors who would come in? Because 100 sounds nice, Waziri, but then now based on what you're saying, maybe we're not so sure of how many people will come in and take them up. So would it have been better to go the other way?
The number of people, of companies that have expressed interest are many. And it's good. The report is good. For me, I would expect that unless one or two dams may not be as viable as it should be to attract maybe a private investor, because again there has to be return to investment, and this return is expected that they will operate and then transfer later between 20 and 30 years. After they have recovered their money. In my view, and this is the way we are seeing it as the ministry, we may have 1 or 2, 3 dams that may not be picked by reason of their unviability. But no, that's not the end of the work.
Yes.
Because the government has not stopped working on the dams.
The government can still put up those dams.
We'll still put up that using through different maybe finance model. This is a model we have chosen, but also between the GOK and partners, there are those where we go concessionary, because either way, for example, I must take water to Turkana, and some areas will not be able to return on the investment. So therefore, those are dams that we call social. So if a few are not picked, And also, it's not, cast in stones,
You can change things
around a little bit. You can change things around a bit because, we also encouraging in different way of looking at viability of the dam, like ensuring that a dam, before we were doing domestic only, dam for domestic water. Now we want to also have the component of irrigation so that it, and also electricity generation, so that the three then, domestic, electricity and irrigation, can augment into the basket for viability.
Okay.
So
also, unfortunately, every time we hear dam recently, then, we get a bit nervous because scandals also touch on this dam issue. 2 days ago, we heard of another story where a dam was supposed to have been, put up in Marsabit.
2009.
In 2009.
But that's a dam.
14 years ago. There's no dam today. 2 billion shillings later. Some of the numbers that you're talking about now, how much is going to be needed. 2 billion shillings later, people have been paid, people went to court, their stories. But at the end of the day, the people of Marsabit who had been told 1, 2, 3 things will happen, unfortunately didn't happen. So then it meets people with trepidation when we hear now dam. Is it another avenue for which now funds, doesn't matter where they come from, then can be diverted elsewhere? So that the fear in a lot of people's hearts is not really, will the dams come? It is the money that is being brought, will it be diverted elsewhere? You see, this is the question. What kind of guarantees can you give to people?
You see, this is private money investment. This is your money that you come and invest. And it is the dam that will pay you back. Not the government as such. You will be paid from the proceeds, from the sale of water from the dam. Before, some of those cases is because the payment was direct from the exchequer.
Yes.
And therefore, there were loopholes of people coming with funny contractors who are given work. And we have a few of those cases of contractors who are not, who are either corrupt or who compromise with our offices.
Whose companies work for the state today, Waziri? Whose companies are of individuals who work for the state today?
There are all manner of reasons, and I had said internal, whatever, in-house compromises, but also failure to scrutinize the fidelities and the financial capacities of the companies, because you have to do due diligence. Are they able to deliver or they are not? So all those manner of things, like the dam you're talking about is Badassa. Badassa Dam, we are now re-evaluating it again. We are doing a new design because the area that it was designed to follow, we have to change a bit, because it's at an area that may not accommodate the dam because of the geological factors. So we will have to change. And it's actually the only dam that can give water to Marsabit, because the other small dam we have there is called Bakuli. It can only give Marsabit town and not just maybe the CBD of Marsabit town. That is complete. In fact, the president will be going there to release it to the public. But Badassa is the one you are referring to. So there will be those manenos will not be there, I can assure you, and I want to assure the public. Even the cost of dam is going to come down, because we have sat down and we have reevaluated our financial analysis, show that we can build dams with less money than it has been done before. And I'm saying that without any fear of contradiction, because you see the cost assessment is of course informed both by the geological factors in the area, the topographies, but also the key factor is the volume of water and the wall, the dam itself.
The dam itself and how much water.
The embankment, the dam, how much water it will hold.
So that
is per cubic meter of water.
Part of the issues then would come from that.
Yes.
Where your engineers and your experts actually costs a dam, and then the private investor comes and agrees with that cost, and they roll out the project. So, for instance, and this is just an example, if your entities say a dam should cost X amount to build, 2 billion shillings to build a dam of this capacity, and the contractor comes and says, yes, we will do it with 2 billion shillings, if they have colluded, again, inside job, and actually this dam could cost 1.5 billion shillings, we will end up paying this private entity 2 billion shillings plus interest over the next 25 to 30 years. So it will have been a criminal enterprise from the very beginning. How do we safeguard to make sure that what we are saying this is going to cost is actually what it should cost? We have an example of the expressway here. We don't know how much it was supposed to cost, how much it ended up costing us, how much we're ending up to pay for the expressway.
First and foremost, I said there is the cost per cubic meter of water. The construction of the dam, the pricing is determined by the volume. That's the biggest component. Then there is the consultancy, because the consultancies are actually where the hidden costs that reap Kenyans are. That we have analyzed and we have seen we can do away with a whole 20% of the consultancies, preliminaries, all those stories that adding up don't give you an answer. So those we are clearing from this. The consultancy fee should be a figure that we shall agree by way of a percentage. But you're not going to tell me that consultancy and preliminary and ABCD will cost Kenyans 35% of the final cost of the dam. That I have told the engineers, I have told the consultants in my ministry, because we have a team that is helping me to come up with that. A team that is a little independent, because we have hired them on consultancy basis to work around those things. Because of course I recognize that internally we may have been part of the area pricings and costing. So I wanted to interrogate and see whether actually the cost is okay. And we are now in agreement without passing any blame as such, that now this is a new beginning. This is people's investment, and you are not going to inflate it 3, 4, 5 times when I can do a dam with 10 billion shillings, then you tell me it will be done by 20 billion. I will not be part of that, I can tell you. And we have now an average. We will standardize and have an average of the price per cubic meter, save for agreeable variations. Yes.
Okay.
And that is between 75 and 275. We know between 75 shillings and 275
shillings.
Yes.
Variations.
Variations. Yeah.
The thing about conversations like this, Waziri, is that Kenyans are listening and they don't forget a lot of the things that are being said here today. Whether we're talking about provision of water to your tap, whether it is a borehole that is sunk by government, etc. A few days ago, you signed a performance contract, the president, and you agreed to certain things being done. That in the next few years, you are bound with your signature for certain things to happen. Are we allowed to ask? I mean, we saw it. We saw what it was. But what are your KPIs? What is it that you signed and said that you were going to make sure you did? If I don't do, let Alice Wahome go home.
I don't think everybody has to sign up. First and foremost, the area behavior of that, it is permanent and pensionable. It's no longer permanent and pensionable. And I think the office of the minister is for a term, is for a period. That the nature of that then requires that you commit yourself to certain things. And those certain things is provision of water, both water, sanitation, and irrigation. The contract is elaborate. Of course, it will not tell you that you'll go home, but it means, obviously, if you don't deliver as expected,
it's performance-based.
It is performance-based.
So it says you will go
you
home.
may have to go home. Yes, you may have to go home. So we have committed to deliver on our work. And there are acceptable reasons that may arise and not allow you to perform to the expected. But then it's also partly your responsibility to ensure also resource mobilization is done so that you can achieve. The 100 dams, for example, we have released 35 for the first beginning. We expected that by January, we will have launched several of those dams.
35.
January, February, yes. Because looking at the period, we have given ourselves maximum by June that we will have done. And the president is following closely on this particular 33, the first lot of the 33. Obviously, if we cannot take off, we have a responsibility and a duty to go and explain why this is not taking off, or why 10, not 33. The rest is about irrigation. We plan between now and 5 years, 700,000 acres. And this is commercial irrigation. Galana Kuraru is one of the case studies that we have now, and we believe we are giving away 10 to 20,000. Initially, we are giving 10,000 because it has water to irrigate, and we already have a contractor, an investor on site doing the irrigation. The first 500 acres is having maize as a pilot, farm. But we have given him we will give him total 20,000 acres to start farming on that particular scheme. We will also provide water for the extra about 300,000 acres in Garada. We are going to Radat. I have a whole list.
You have things to do.
We have things to do in this particular contract.
Okay.
So, and we'll also be doing small dams. Where we are looking forward to completing the 33, the 100, we also have to do 4,000 smaller dams.
So let's do our own accountability and social contract here with the people. These 33 dams, you say that by quarter one of 2024, quarter one of calendar year, not academic year, quarter one of the calendar year 2024, you should be seeing the contractors already signing contracts and getting onto the ground. How long should it take them to actualize these dams to finish?
About 36 months. Between 24 and 36 months. Again, depending on the size, it could go up to 48 months.
Okay.
Yes.
So 2.5 years onwards, 2024, 26.
30 months to 48 months, we should be able.
By early 2027, some of these dams should be completed.
Should be complete.
Which areas are they going to
And
benefit?
then we have also identified another 25 smaller dams of between. The president has given instructions for us to identify another 25, smaller size for the interim, costing us 3 billion shillings and below. And I think that will require a different financing model, GOK and possibly grants. And we are working to see how that one will go.
Okay.
And we will be presenting that list maybe when he has time. The list is ready.
Okay.
So you are asking which
Again,
dams?
The 33. Yeah. Where are they? Paint for us this picture in 2027, what we should be seeing in these areas. Tell us, in this area you'll have more water, you'll have irrigation that's taking place, and you'll be buying water from the providers for your irrigation. Which areas are these?
Latiff, I would have preferred that one. I come when we have finalized the list, because again, it depends on who will pick what, how many will be picked. But we have Pesi Malewa in Nyandarua. We have Radat in Baringo. We have Lawat. We have Muhoyas Dam. We have Kamumu in Muhoyas is in Nyeri. We have the other day when we went with the president, he said he would do Gula Dam in Teto. Between for Teto and Mukuruene, for Teto and Mukuruene. Then we have Kamumu in Embu. We have Doshi, we have Nyambana, we have the high grad force in Tharaka, we have Garana, they are everywhere.
So where should this water be going to? For example, when you say those ones in Laikipia and around of Mount Kenya
like now,
regions,
Laikipia, Marewa and Pesi will serve a part of Laikipia. Nyandarua may be possible to serve a bit of Laikipia, but mainly is for Nyandarua. And then Malewa will serve the area of Gigil, I think in Naivasha. So that's basically in those two counties, Nakuru County and Nyandarua County. Then we have Kahurura in Nanyuki that will serve Laikipia, Nanyuki area. We have a dam in Narok. We have a dam in Narok. We have Dabasa. We have Thwake here down.
The same Dabasa.
Yes, it is part of it. Is part. We cannot lose. You know, we still will continue. We can't give up.
Yeah.
We have Thwake, which is going to give water to Machakos and Kitui.
But Thwake is complete. Why you?
No, it's not complete. Thwake is not complete.
So you want to hand over what's already done to a private entity?
No. I'm just, you asked where are these dams?
Yeah,
it's not complete
PPP
because
dams.
It's only the dam that is being constructed. It has the pipeline and irrigation network that will have to be done. The treatment works we are giving to private, to PPP and the pipeline.
So in 2027, basically what we are saying is we should have at least 33 new dams supplying water for domestic consumption and for industrial use in areas and irrigation areas.
By 2027.
By 2027.
Yes, by 2027. Yes.
By end of 2026.
Of course, this plan is for 2030, all of it, you know. I mean, but by 2026, 2027, we should start having some good results from this work. Of course, you know, the Nairobi.
What will happen?
Nairobi, we have the case for the Northern Corrector and the entire system of the Northern Corrector, the Karimenu, the Darugo that is giving me problems, the Roiro 2 that is also giving me problems because of failure. The Roiro 2 is a contractor issue, so we have terminated, but Darugo is community issues, considering that we also are dealing with the Karimenu issues of compensation. But we are in a good conversation with the community, and the progress is very good. In the next 2 months, the Northern Collector and the entire system should release water now to Nairobi area at about a total of an extra 130,000 cubic meters of water per day. It's part of that water that we brought to Githurai the other day with the head of state. So the work is ongoing. Like in this particular trip, the president commissioned my own projects for my ministry, 5 of them. Yesterday,
every day he was just doing a water project.
Like the one we commissioned yesterday at Roiro. Of course, I thought not at Roiro, at Thika.
Yes.
Somewhere between Thika town and Goingworth, somewhere there. Is a project that is going to draw water from Karimenu Dam. Karimenu Dam's capacity is 70,000 cubic meters of water per day. And that project is going to cost us about 4.6 billion shillings because the pipeline will draw water from Karimenu Dam. You see, there was a lot of negative publicity, which is unnecessary, that we are commissioning a dam that was already commissioned by the previous head of state. First and foremost, the projects belong to the Kenyans. When you exit, that project must be continued by the next government. So this is a particular phase 2 of that project where the president instructed that we must give, because of the demand of water in Thika town. You know, it's also crazy because the population has exploded. They didn't have enough water. They have only around, this time they have about 40,000 cubic meters of water per day, and they need about 60,000. So this particular pipeline will give them a whole 20,000 cubic meters per day. So they will more or less be water sufficient with this completion up to 2040. That's what the MD told me. So this project was commissioned yesterday. It will take exactly 1 year.
For the water to get
and
to
the contractor has agreed to work on it for a period of 5 years. We'll be paying annually, concessionary annually, every year for the next 5 years. You know, because we have to think of innovative ways of raising, getting it done without actual exchequer on the spot.
Which is where I want to come back onto the structure of the PPPs. Being a new thing where we have a private entity that is selling water to the people through the government. How will this work? Just walk us through. So there is Latiff and Sons Engineering Company that has been contracted to do a water dam. How do I make my money?
Now, right now, we have put, we advertise for call of expression of interest last 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
That call of interest was closed on 20th of July. Between now and 20th of August, Latiff and Sons or Latiff and Company are
Latiff
waiting.
and Latifa.
Latifa are waiting for us to go through your expression, documentation, and assess you and say, yes, Latiff can do 1, 2, 3 that he said, because we had the list of the 33 dams. After 20th, we will come up with an answer and say, yes, you can do 1, 2, or you can do 1.
Okay.
Maybe Lawat Dam.
Okay.
Or Muhoya Dam.
Okay.
Then we will give you a written request for you to forward your development proposal.
All right.
Where then you can put in all factors required to show us that you'll be able to do it within what time, for how much. We can negotiate at that level and tell you this is what we want you to agree. You put in your design. We have preliminary design to guide you, but you now bring a proper design for the work.
Right.
By December, we'll close that exercise, then do our evaluation within a month or so. By February, we are awarding. So we are signing those. February, March, we should be. Okay, I'm told up to June, but I don't want to accept June myself. I've told them we must work.
Quarter one,
somehow, so that we can have contracts in quarter one, then they can take off. So I think that is the basically, then when you build this dam, when it is complete, it will be, off-taker will be the water agency of that particular region. If we find the agency in that region doesn't have capacity, we'll work around their capacity so that they can be the off-takers of that water, because there will be no interaction. Latiff will not go direct to Mwananchi because we don't want that. That's not possible. We can't allow that. Latiff will interact with our agency, and then our agency will off-take at whatever cost you will agree with them. Obviously, there is the regulators that will come in to interface, and then the water service providers will be given water by
the agency.
Indeed, so far we will start giving the waters that are complete, the ready for that. We shall start doing that, including here in Nairobi.
Okay. So who?
So then the payment will be to the agency. Then the agency will be able now to pay the contractor.
Okay.
Yes.
And the contractor will be expected to operate this dam, service the dam, and everything. The duration
jointly,
of the contract.
Yes, jointly, of course, with the agency in a way, because our people will still be there. They must operate, manage, service, because we'll also be giving them the money. Yes. Until they recover their investment.
We spoke of a one government approach in all of these things. I can see it in my head how if the ministry under Alice Wahome is operating along the lines of what we've spoken about today, you can see the ripple effects that it would have for health. You can see the ripple effects that it would have for agriculture. You can see how this would help with education. Is there a common understanding amongst yourself and your colleagues that if we are not doing, what we said we will do, what we ought to do, the effect negatively that it would have on others?
I think there is nobody who will have the luxury or time and space to actually not do what they are supposed to do. We have a president who is hands-on and requiring delivery every day and reports every day. That kind of environment is good for us, and we'll make sure every other minister delivers. And that requirement and demand is not just on the minister, it's the whole ministry and the team. So we have these teams around ourselves that know what is expected of the ministry, each ministry. So I think there will be time to rectify for anybody, time to sort out yourself, so that my work does not affect my colleagues' work. For example, of course, health will be impacted negatively by lack of water even in health institutions, and some health institutions actually have that particular challenge. It's for me to get those details from my colleague, and then we see how we can support the services there in terms of provision of water. So I just want to say that looking at the way we are working, this particular trip can tell you that there were roads that were being launched. There were one hospital in Narumoro. Then I had 4 water projects plus 1 irrigation project in Tetu, affecting about maybe 6,000 to 8,000 households. There was also 2 housing projects, one in Kirinyaga and another one in Thika. So when you look at all that, the way and if it's a housing project, it is my responsibility to ensure as it come up, of course, with the necessary information from my colleagues, that they also have water. So we are planning in a way holistically together. Yes.
I know we're just coming back onto that borehole issue. Again, about a year ago, there were reports that had come out about the burden of boreholes in cities, that the water table then had become an issue. Because finding enough water, because everywhere you went there was a borehole. And this is also because the supply of water does not reach developments. So today, I don't know how many developments that they're up and coming. There must be quite a number. And if there's not enough...
For Nairobi or for wherever?
For Nairobi. Let's just use Nairobi as an example.
Metropolis.
Yeah, the metropolis, right? We know that water is not coming out of pipes because the piping system right now for a lot of these developments outside doesn't exist. So the only option that they have for provision of water is boreholes. And we're already being told that the burden is too heavy on the water table. We don't know what it looks like outside of the cities. But then what would be the solution for developments that, as we sit here today, are being assented to, that they're being approved right now? The people who are sitting in the office, somebody is signing and saying, go ahead. And we know, based on what you've said, that no, why should we give approvals when we know that we're not going to be able to provide things like water?
I think it's a catch-22,
isn't it?
Because people can't live without water.
Exactly.
And it is true, the water levels are depleted and they are getting scarce and scarce, because when we go for long periods with drought, then you don't have sufficient recharge. But there is a method called for recharge, which we are planning for Nairobi, meaning you drill the ground and recharge, allow recharge of water back to the water tables. That is going to be done. And therefore, the fear that then it is being done, people are just there waiting for maybe crisis, is not in vain, because we have received those data and we are working on that. We our ground Center for Groundwater, together with the Water Resource Authority, are on it, and they are working on how we can start recharging water in Nairobi. Yes.
As you deal with all these things, then you also have to also deal with some pending work, pending bills, and historical issues in the water sector when it comes to irrigation schemes and the mega projects, the dams. So you have the Badassa Dam. Now you are dealing with Badassa. You're also looking at Thwake, which has been under construction for a long time, but
actually it's going on well. It's at 85%.
And completion of it. There's Aror Kimorer, which has been a story for a long time. How are you handling them? Let's start with Aror and Kimorer Dam.
Aror and Kimareo, we are in conversation. They were stopped. There were political reasons in background that informed maybe the stoppage of the work. In fact, Aror and Kimareo did not take off at all. But Itare started, and it's at the time they stopped, when the investigations started, they were at 27%. With the assistance of the head of state, the president himself, we have taken up negotiations, because these loans were given by the Italian government, some of them, plus financial, the insurances and all that were covered by the government insurance company. We are in discussion with them, and we have basically agreed on a plan. So far, the agreement has reached a situation where we have said they will return about 16 billion shillings, because this was money that was not utilized. Mm-hmm. It was for insurance, for work that didn't take off. So that money, including advance, in total, 16 billion shillings will be reinvested into. We want to start now with Itare. It will be reinvested in Itare, and then we take off. The company is in discussion with my technical teams for evaluation of their financial, their legal, all those status properly, so that when we start, we also don't land into other problems. And I believe that in another maybe 2 months, we will seal a good deal so that we can take off with Itare Dam. The Itare Dam, because the investment already is 27% of about 30 billion is a lot of money. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
How about Aror and Kimorer?
Aror and Kimorer, that's we haven't yet come up with an agreement. But you see, we in terms of the final agreement, we may not do. Kimorer has some geological issues which we are looking at because of where it is designed. That design has to be reworked on and possibly moved from where it is.
But Waziri, doesn't it bother you that
it does? It has bothered Kenyans, but
so there's a dam that had already been commissioned, and upon review, you realize that actually, where we wanted to put up the dam, there are some geological issues. Not one, but you've actually given us 2 instances: Badasa in Marsabit, and now Kimorer in West Pokot. Doesn't it bother you? I mean, these things were being done by experts in government, and experts in government are coming and reviewing within a very short period of time and saying, no, this is not the right
design flow.
Yes, there is a design flow. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens, and it can be very expensive and costly. I admit that, but
So what are you doing to make sure that this doesn't happen for the 33 dams that we are about to embark on?
The 33, there will be there is a team, consultancy team that is scrutinizing all that and the designs, and we think we will operate. We'll be able to operate above board. And that's what is important. There is no room in this government for shoddy work. There is no room. There is no room. They have consultants there will be consultants who will be paid.
Yeah.
The contractor has a consultant. Okay?
Yes.
The ministry has technical people, engineers who are experts in that area. We have given them very clear messages that there is no room for monkey business completely. You practice that, you have yourself to blame.
Okay.
And you'll be on your own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody has asked us to ask you this very many times. Please ask her to comment on the Koru Soin Dam.
Koru Soin Dam was a bad idea in terms of financial funding model. Because Koru Soin is a 20 billion dam. And it was designed, the financial model was to be funded by the GOK. We don't have any dam at the moment of that amount to be funded by GOK alone. I think it was a rushed dam to draw money quickly from the exchequer for certain people. The project is a good project. I mean, in terms of the project, I think the project was basically used for some people to quickly gather money without proper.
So the idea is viable.
Yes, we are working on it. We are working. In terms of the objective.
The objective. The people who benefit from it.
Yeah, but you cannot be able to build that dam with the 20 billion shillings from the Kenya exchequer where we are. My budget around GOK per year for irrigation, for example, is only 10 billion. Yeah. For the water and sanitation is another maybe 25 billion. So how do I put in one project
20 billion?
20 billion. So that's why the government component is normally about 10 to 15%. But when you bring it at 100%, then you kill the project.
But if you say it's normally that, then there's an understanding across board that that's what it should be. Why would somebody then come out and say 20 billion shillings for a dam when there is a clear understanding across board that the government will only help with 15 to 25% in this should actually be a PPP?
Not the No, not a PPP. They are funders. They are partners.
Yes.
They are, most of these dams are funded by World Bank, AFD, European Union, IFC.
Yes.
We have a whole list of development partners that give us loans. Some are concessionary loans, some are concessionary and commercial. So when you are designing the financial model to support a project, you have to take into account how much is the GOK component, how much can the government pay, because you don't have the luxury of putting 20 billion in one project. So that was a mistake from the beginning. But we are approaching it from a PPP review and see whether it will be picked up and progressed
was
to another
money
level.
Expended in this?
Yes, 1.5 billion.
1.5 billion shillings was already
some
spent.
money, yes, it's already spent. Some money went to land compensation, which is not complete, and maybe whatever, the records are not very well supportive.
What are you doing to rectify that? Is there an investigation? Is there accountability for this?
I'm waiting for a report from the National Water Harvesting Authority.
It sounds to me, Waziri, that you have a lot of work to do to correct very many messes in your ministry. If it is not a financial
actually,
model
that
flaw,
was more political
it's
than
a geological flaw. I mean, there are very many flaws that are costly. It's
sometimes we have been
shillings.
talking about state capture and people didn't. This is one of those projects that were politically motivated to assist some people, and I don't want to say beyond that, but it was rushed because there was, it takes time to actually get a partner, a development partner, sometimes between 9 months and 18 months to secure a partner for a project. But I think this was either to secure votes or to tell people there is something we are doing for you and come up with a rushed project without proper financing. And that's all I want to say. And it was highly politically motivated, and the political stakes were higher than maybe even some of my staff.
CT would have asked you this question, so let me not deny
Take
him this
it away
opportunity.
from her.
Yes. So CT would have asked about the Turkana aquifer.
Yes.
All right. That report that came out, we have so much water underground in Turkana, and then it's very expensive to get that water to the people of Turkana. Is there any plan by your ministry to ever look at that Turkana aquifer?
Turkana aquifer, we have, what I would say about the aquifer is that it is true there is an aquifer with quite a lot of water. It is under a program that we call Horn of Africa program. We work with programs. The Horn of Africa is funding data collection, analysis, and all that, so that we know how much water we have, how much we can use, the quality of water, the quality and quantity of water. This aquifer, together with some other aquifer that are cross-border, that is between Ethiopia and Somalia and Kenya, there is another big aquifer there. So the counties of Marsabit, Wajir, Madera, Turkana, and Garissa, 5 counties are covered by the Horn of Africa project or program that will deal with the aquifers. By the time we finish the studies, we will have done maybe about maybe 400 boreholes, because we need to dig boreholes, drilling and all that, we will have gotten a very good answer. For Turkana, it could be even faster because mostly the water is on our side, but the ones between shared boundaries is a bit tricky. But we are working on that. So for now, I cannot tell you that yes, it's ready for use. Yes, yeah. So the ministry has an elaborate program, and it is jointly being done by the county governments and ourselves. Yeah.
In terms of completion, one of the things also that you did mention is that administrations in terms of projects should be progressive. If at the end of one administration something has not been done, then it would be the onus of the next administration to take it up and kind of go with it. Are there some of those that you're finishing? I mean, in addition to this, to the projects that are coming up we've talked about, those that you found midway, nowhere, are those also part of the agenda?
For example, the other day we launched Mwache project.
Yes.
From the beginning. But it was a project designed long time. I mean, for years and years, people have been talking about Mwache project. We launched it in April this year, on 6th of April this year. And we will finish it. The Deputy President knew that project from the beginning. And he's been following it. We have Muzima, a project designs. I mean, all these projects and dams, first let me say, they are not projects that we have from the blue come up with. These are projects and dams that people of those particular areas have been demanding and asking, can we have water from dam A, dam B? Can we have water? We have this dam, why can't we not have it done? That is the truth. Of course, Thwake, for example, we found it about 60%. About 67%, now it's at 87%. We have progressed. The Karimeno, the Karimenos and the Darugo areas and the Northern Connector system, and it's an entire system, was also maybe 80-70%. Are we supposed to stop it? No. These are government projects. These are the Republic of Kenya people's projects. So we are continuing many, including some of the ones that I launched over during this period. These are irrigation and water projects. It's hard to do them in 5 months or 6 months. Yes. There are projects, as I said, a minimum of maybe, if you are lucky, you can do between 12 and 18 months. The smaller ones. The bigger ones, 24 to 48 months, depending on the size. So you will find that as we go along, of course you can decide then to kill the project and don't give funding. You don't give funding because they are annually funded. They are not funded. When you come up with a project, you don't get your 10 billion in a day. No. It's also paid by certificate. As you know, the certificate, you invest your money, the contractor invests the money, the work is assessed, technical assessment, financial assessment, and then the certificate is passed, Treasury approves, the ministry approves, then you pay. And so the following year, you are proceeding. You can decide then you want to be a nuisance or you just don't like the person who started it. So you kill it. Who are you punishing?
It's a citizen.
It's the citizen.
It's a citizen who will suffer.
The project should not have the face of a person. It should have the face of the people of the Republic of Kenya. Yes.
Earlier this year, when the president was in Galana Kulalu, he announced that, you know what, our new idea is we go PPP. Irrigation, of course, is under your docket. The National Irrigation Authority is under your docket. So I'm assuming that it's the authority that will be looking at who comes into the Galana Kulalu irrigation scheme to take up the irrigation projects. By June, the president should have received a new PPP framework that will govern that. We had the Director General of PPPs a couple of days after the president announced, and he said, yeah, we're working on. Is there a PPP framework for Galana Kulalu? What is the plan for actually bringing in the private sector into the Galana Kulalu to bring us food? When should we start benefiting from food coming out of Galana Kulalu?
We already have one agreement for Galana Kulalu, and it is ongoing. I had said that we have 560 acres under maize irrigation. At least it's already under irrigation and it's doing well. Apparently, I think I'm supposed to be visiting back there next week. When we first went there, we went with the president to assess the situation. And so that particular investor is taking 20,000 acres. The first is 10,000, which already has water. The water we have so far under the phase 1 of Garana is possible to do the 10,000 acres, and we are giving that one out. But the same person is going to take 20,000. The balance is about another 300,000 acres. We have 3 very interested investors for farming, commercial farming. What we need to do for them, and that's why Thwake is very key, because some of the water from Thwake Dam will actually go to Garana. We are we are around now making a final decision that the water is a lot. We need to take some to Kitui, Machakos, and leave some for irrigation in the area between Kitui, around that area, and then Kibwezi, and then the rest will go to Garana for bulk farming, for commercial farming. Even as we do another dam, maybe a smaller dam later in Galana, because we are trying to look at the cost element so that we are informed from our analysis. It might be easier to use that water because the dam is going to be complete by February next year. So the framework, if I were to tell you that the framework is that once you agree with the person, then you are able to
get it done.
To get it done. So.
Waziri, we asked you for a few more minutes. Thank you for giving us an extra hour to the conversation. But it was a big one. People needed to hear this, and people have been asking and following the conversation. The Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, the Honorable Alice Wahome, has been our guest in the Situation Room today. Thank you very much for all the comments and questions, and thank you for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Have a lovely day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
It's 10 a.m. Thank you, Waziri.
Asante sana. Thank you very much.
Spice up your life